Good evening. It's Tuesday night. It's 5:30 p.m. It means one thing and one thing only. The M5 show is back. I'm El Smuggo,
I'm Jim.
and we are back with an explosive M5 show. I can feel tonight. We're going to talk all things Arsenal. We're going to look back at the Manchester United defeat at the weekend, where we lost 3-2 at the Emirates. We will go back as well and look at the Inter Milan game. We've got games coming thick and fast. Kairait in the Champions League tomorrow night, and then a massive encounter at Ellen Road on Saturday, which has now become even bigger after the result on Sunday. So, obviously, before we start and before I go in to say some welcomes to our viewers, how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, all good, mate. Yeah, no. From a personal perspective, can't be better. I've managed to get the other side of that illness bug that's hampered me, mate, for most of January. That I think a lot of people have had this thing all over the world, but not sure if COVID was trying to come round and have another round. But yeah, no. From that side of things, very good. But from an Arsenal side, maybe slightly indifferent. What about yourself?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, mate. I ain't gonna lie to you. I was an angry little gremlin on Sunday night. I had to go for probably the longest walk back to Finsbury Park that I've ever done. I went on a proper detour. We got well away from all the fans and all that. And I ended up sending you a voice note, mate. um,
Yeah.
so you know how pissed off I was. I know how pissed off you was. So I'm actually really looking forward to obviously locking horns tonight and having that discussion with you.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's two ways to look at this, isn't it? Like, usual aspects of the show are that we'd review the midweek game and then we'd move on to the weekend. But I don't really want to sugarcoat anything. And I think actually we'll amalgamate the two into one another, because I think I've actually had a few conversations. My pal Che's listening again, so evening to you, Che. And and everyone who kind of sends me messages now or sort of wants to chat it through, the main dilemma, Smugs, and I'll kind of pose it to you, is obviously how can we be 7 from 7 in the Champions League, beat Inter, beat Bayern, beat Atletico, but like we're coming up against Premier League opposition time and time again, and it looks like an entirely different football club in a entirely different state of form is playing. And I think we've papered over a few cracks over the previous week, sort of October, November, maybe with, let me just say, subpar performances that have led to 3 points, so that we've been okay with it. But some of the concerns that we've raised in previous pods leading up to this, where we've maybe dampened it a little bit because the 3 points have been there, of somewhat kind of like, not been earmarked or been have had the sort of speakers around them. But after that display Sunday, and then two very average results in the league before that, where our attacking play has been all but obsolete, I think it really is time now to kind of get into the guts of this with half a season to go and work out, are we actually genuinely in all four competitions? Is there a nervousness about getting anything over the line, or is it a blip and we're going to be fine?
I'm struggling to really answer that at the moment, and I'll be honest with you. Part of the reason why I'm struggling to answer you that is because I just can't get my head wrapped around still 2 days on the graphic that I see in terms of our goal scoring record, in terms of our key players. When you look at obviously Victor Gokres, obviously Jesus Sunday, your Sakas, your Martinellis, your Trossards. I'd even go that far to say your Odegaards. The style of play that we're playing at home is for me, and it's really hard to be in this position to say this because we're sitting at the top of the league, 4 points ahead of everyone else. And I'm going to say this in a bit of a respectful way, that it's not good enough. That the performances at home are not good enough. I've left that stadium, barring Aston Villa, since the Tottenham game, probably frustrated every single time I've come out of that stadium. And I'm scratching my head to understand why, when I look at the calibre of players we got, the defence we've got, We're not talking about players that have not scored in seasons gone by. Bukayo Saka's hit 15 goals in a season. Martinelli's hit 15 goals in a season. Victor Gyokeres scored 54 goals in a season for his previous club. Yes, he's playing for a club that now is obviously at a much bigger level in a much bigger competitive league. But the stats don't lie. Do you know what I mean? Like, we are playing a brand of football that might win us the Premier League. But for me, it's so frustrating to see because I know what we've got on the pitch. I look at the calibre we've got on the pitch, and I'm sitting there thinking, I'm barely ever seen now Bukayo Saka have a shot. I barely see Victor Gyokeres even get a chance created for him. I barely see even Trossard get much of an effort in. And for me, it situates with this centre midfield, and I've said it for weeks and weeks and weeks. I just do not believe that we need to be playing both Zubimendi and Declan Rice on the same pitch week in, week out at the Emirates. I think we have to be more expansive. We need to trust our players more. We need to trust our defenders more. We've gone in games against Wolverhampton and sat deep for the last 5 minutes of a game and nearly got our asses burnt because of it. I watched us at Brighton. David Raya pulled off one of the best saves that I think I've ever seen at a football stadium to grab us a win that was 2-0 up and we was comfortable and we nearly threw that away. For Aston Villa, I'll keep saying it, great result. Onana went off injured at half-time. In the first half, he was running through our midfield. He was terrorising our midfield in that first half. Liverpool was diabolical in the second half. It was absolutely diabolical. I've never seen a team fold like they did on a pitch. Declan Rice's body language was totally off the second half. Something for me happened at half-time in that game.
Yeah, you've mentioned that a few times.
And I'll just go into this Manchester United game before I pass back over to you, mate. For 30, 35 minutes, we dominated that game. They didn't even put a patch on us until we scored. Then within 30 seconds of us scoring, if it wasn't for their forwards' bad first touch, he's clean through. He's clean through. And you're sitting there thinking, how the hell is this happening? Do you know what I mean? And yet again, after we scored the second goal, we just totally lost our railings again. I think we just totally lost our composure. Look, I've been one of these people that have backed Madueke, and I've been quite impressed in terms of what he does. But obviously, he needs to improve massively with his final ball. But for him to run that ball out of play like he did, which led to the goal, is not acceptable for me. That shouldn't be happening. Do you know what I mean? Is that pressure? For me, he got more excited. He got totally too excited about the situation and totally lost his ratings a little bit. And it wasn't the first time he did it in that game. It was at least 2-3 times that he did that. Arteta has to make a big decision now. Arteta's the man who has to make that decision. And what the big decisions that he will make, he will be determined for it at the end of the season. He's got two ways. He can go one way and end up being a hero at Arsenal. And he can make the big changes that needs to be made now, because he has sat on it, because we've got away with it for weeks and weeks and weeks. But look, when you're coming up against players like Casemiro and Fernandes, look, we know they blow hot and cold, but they're not players to be messed with. As you see in that second half, Fernandes took over that game. Fernandes took over that game in the second half, and he showed what a calibre of player he is in that attacking midfield role. We haven't seen that from Odegaard, apart from maybe the Aston Villa game. What has happened to Martin Odegaard? Why has Eze been dropped for 5-6 games without playing? These are big, big questions that need to be asked. Eberechi Eze looked like a man who was absolutely lost. He looked absolutely lost on Sunday when he came on. He looked like that his confidence had totally drained. He didn't know what to do. That was my assumption of it all. He just looked like like you just picked him out of a small a team last week and just whacked him into the Arsenal team, and he was like, what am I supposed to do here? He just didn't look with it, and it's like his confidence is totally drained. This is the same guy that banged a hat-trick in 2 months ago. Like, how do you go from being that high to that low in 2 months? We're stopping our players from enjoying playing football. Wingers, attackers thrive on scoring goals. It doesn't surprise me that there's some discontent in the camp at the moment. Look, we've seen it. Declan Rice arguing with the coach coming out of the tunnel the other week. Do you know what I mean? He's looked pissed off for quite a few weeks. And look, I don't want to say I told people so, but I picked up on it straight away. I picked up on Declan Rice straight away at that Liverpool game. Do you know what I mean? Martin Odegaard needs to be taken out of the limelight. He needs to be taken back out of the limelight. He needs to be put back onto the bench for a couple of games and see if another system works. Because at the moment, for me, he's becoming Granit Xhaka under Unai Emery. And why I say that, is Granit Xhaka under Unai Emery got substituted after 55 minutes every game. That's what Martin Odegaard's becoming here. And I'll tell you what the problem is with that, and it was the problem with Granit Xhaka. Once he got subbed 2, 3, 4 times, the crowd are thinking, well, he's not doing his job properly. Why is he captain? And that's the problem now, that the crowd are sitting there seeing Odegaard coming off 3, 4, 5 times. And that's why there's questions regarding, should he be the captain? For me, I don't think he's the right man for it anymore. I think we've outgrown him, but I understand that a decision probably will need to be made at the end of the season. But that doesn't stop Mikel Arteta not starting him at the moment. So if he doesn't start him, someone else got to be captain on that pitch anyway.
Well, there's so many issues to kind of unfold there, and you've picked up on so many points. And I think probably this evening we're going to go back and forth on a number of them. Just on the Odegaard one, there's a couple of things. I disagree with you about having him out the team. I actually probably would be one of only 2 people that I would potentially start tomorrow night against Kairait, because a home game against what in essence should be a team that we should comfortably have a significant amount of the possession of the football would be a perfect opportunity for him to try and put down a marker and find some confidence and play. They've already said Timber and Saliba are being rested. Norgard did the press conference today, so I assume he's playing. But I would play Odegaard tomorrow night and just say, look, lead him out there and lead the resurgence. But I totally agree with you. If with the fan base, Smugs, I think we're divided into like 2 halves, right? With a slightly older fan base. Let me just probably say from the age range of say 28 to 30 and above, and then the younger fan base that are obviously so much more active on social media now, and they're very much like the clan that believe that Arsene Wenger was an entire failure at this football club. Unai Emery didn't fit. And Odegaard is the prodigal son, and this is Arteta is the prodigal son, and this is very much Arteta Arsenal more so than Arsenal in as a whole. And then you've got people like yourself, myself, and probably other people in and around our age range that remember an invincible season, 2 doubles within 3 years, a Champions League final under Arsene Wenger, a certainly very different style of football. But we remember captains like in our title-winning sides, Tony Adams and Patrick Vieira, and then we remember leaders in people like Fabregas, Henry, Van Persie, who led by performance to sufficiently impact every game when the team was down and somebody needed to pick them up. And Odegaard is neither of those 2 profiles for me, which is why I really struggle with him with the armband. He does not look like a definitive leader on the pitch, by somebody who bullies the rest of the players and is like the vocal point of everything that goes on. We mentioned last week about the fact that even Rice is writing to new signings, and I think things like that are just undermine his presence as a club captain. Tony Adams would never let Ray Parlour write to Dennis Bergkamp when he signed for the football club. It would completely undermine Tony Adams' status. And then by showing off in big moments when you need, like, whether it be a nasty streak or you need a moment of brilliance, I come back to the point of the pass that he makes against Porto last year in the Champions League was the only real defining moment where he looked like, an element of brilliance, like unlocks a game, where he slips Trossard in a pivotal moment where we needed action, and he found it. And I don't think that he's had a moment like that since, and and that and the most underlining concern for Odegaard is exactly what you've just said. Um, is that after 55 minutes, when you're 2-1 down, your captain, who is also your creative midfielder, is dragged off the pitch for an alternative. That for me is like a significant sign that in that moment your coach, your manager doesn't trust you. And and that is the point where really I think you cross the barricade. On the captaincy, if you do take Odegaard out of the team and you then look for the next captain, I've mentioned this to you before, Smugs. The next problem is that the vice captain is Saka. And I don't actually believe
Yeah.
that he is the right profile of an individual to take the armband over Odegaard. And I actually think he's been slightly juvenile in some of his captaincy appearances this year when Odegaard was injured, like taking the penalty off of Gyökeres and very much making it the Bukayo Saka show a little bit in some scenarios. And don't actually think he operates like a proper captain on the pitch. I must give Odegaard his flowers for those moments. Like when he was on the pitch and he went and picked the ball up and gave Gyökeres the penalty at Everton, it was the right thing to do. So, but so my fear would be that we would kind of be out of the fire into the frying pan because Saka would be the next person to get the armband. Instead, what you're suggesting, and I know where you're going with it, and I agree, is a complete change in the leadership team. And you're looking at somebody most likely as a Declan Rice, maybe secondary to him, a Gabriel, who is an enforcer, a presence, someone who's incredibly passionate, who could lift a crowd. I just don't ever see Odegaard or Saka like, you'll tell me because you're in the ground every week, like flay their arms up and engage with the audience and try and get them back up either. I just don't think they have that in their mindset or presence to go and do that. Where I think a Gabriel or a Rice would. The next thing is my biggest fear and something that I really want to have an open dialogue with you on is the style of football and how suppressed we are of. I believe this is an Arteta issue that they are coached in such a sense that they're not allowed to express themselves properly in the final third and break the line with passes. There was evidence on Sunday which led to Zubimendi's mistake where Rice picks the ball up off Saliba. He pops the ball back to Saliba. He makes an arching run around Casemiro and puts himself in a channel. I sent you the link. Wayne Rooney does a really, really good analysis on this on Match of the Day. And Rice is right in the pocket then, in the channel, and they've taken the midfield out. And and you can literally see us being in the channel in transition. And Saliba goes backwards to Zubimendi. Zubimendi absolutely does not want the ball there under that pressure. He's not great with his if the game's not being played in front of him, where the ball's coming back to him in the sixth, which actually is a flaw in his game as somebody who's going to sit in at the base of a midfield, definitely, because he's made this mistake before. He's just been punished for it massively. Puts an awful pass back towards Raya, hospital pass, and we give them a goal, and we give them a life, and we give them life in that game, and obviously we go on to lose it. The complete polar opposite to that moment around the style of football for me would be if you've seen Ethan Nwaneri's debut for where's he gone? He's gone to not Londres, Marseille. The goal he scores is that of a driving run from the right eight, drops his shoulder, goes past a man, flicks inside, curls in the bottom corner from 20 yards out. And no one in our team has scored a goal or had a chance on goal like that this season, where they've beaten the block, It was a mid-block that Lens had. Lens are top of the league in France, by the way. They're no mugs. They've beaten the mid-block, dropped inside, took two guys out the game, and put a great finish on it. And Nwaneri's gone on and done that 12 minutes into his debut. And that is the difference between a manager who tells you to go out and express yourself and a manager who stands on the sideline utterly animated and just clicks fingers and shouts and hollers at people and tells them exactly where to stand on what step at every single given time.
Yeah.
And this has been an ongoing issue that we've had since that 22-23 season where Odegaard, Saka and Martinelli all score 15 goals. And ever since that point, we have not been attractive to watch. And the difference in a couple of those things were some little things. Man, I see people put out collages of Zinchenko passes this week and say we're missing Zinchenko's line-breaking passes. I mean, if anyone tries to convince me that guy should be in this Arsenal team, honestly, mate, I'm done with it all. I'll just go back into my cave. But what is different about that team then is that the pass that Zinchenko is making is into Xhaka, who was a deep-lying playmaker, but he's a left-footed left eight. And we've obviously moved into a right-footed left eight now, which means that Rice is playing on the half turn with his back to the left winger. So we're completely suppressing the left-hand side of the pitch to gain any width, which means Trossard is playing heavily inverted. Calafiori or Miles Lewis-Skelly, who occupy the left-back position, want to play infield. You look at the positions Calafiori took up against Fulham, he was almost playing as a 10. So we're not getting any width in our left-hand side. And I've mentioned this to you before, Smugs. There's just a really, really slow drift towards the right-hand side of the pitch where we over-convolute that space and we don't actually stretch the opposition and allow them to operate in. Where if we can actually stretch them out, use the left-hand side more, we could get a lot more activity out of the runs that Gyökeres is making, and we could also help free Saka up more on his fullback, and let him get in behind. And I just think everything in our play at the moment is retrofitted to suit a narrative of not conceding, but we completely shoot ourselves in the foot in the ability to score goals in open play. And if we get figured out, and the last 2 years we've been figured out a little bit around this Christmas break, is because we tweak our set play strategy, and it takes the teams one fixture in the league to work them out. Then the second time round you come to play these teams, they've got your card marked a little bit because you haven't really changed the way you operate, and they know how you're going to operate. And United under Carrick have come to our patch. Man, I'm sitting there watching Bruno and Dorgu play tick-a-tacker around our billion-quid squad, and it's embarrassing, utterly embarrassing. And Bruno's come to our house, and he showed Odegaard how to play in that advanced eight. He's taken the game. He's taken the game under. He's taken it in the palm of his hands. He's put his hand around the neck of the game, and impacted it. And the thing is, Smugs, when we're setting up like that, where we're not really going forward, it is so much pressure then as a defensive unit to be absolutely rock solid defensively. And United just carried on walking through the middle of us. They kept creating chances through the middle of the pitch and getting in the final third, in and around the box, through the middle of the park. I'm sitting there thinking, your number 10's not allowed to drive forward. Your number 9's being totally exposed. When Jesus is on the pitch, who was awful, he's playing a free role and he's not even playing on the last man, so he's helping out in defence. Your two wide players are inverted and your fullbacks are playing narrow. How the fuck are they getting space in the middle of the pitch? Positionally, it means that we're all over the place. I'd get it if we were stretched and we're trying to get in behind them on the counter and stretch the game out a little bit. But when we're playing so convoluted and compressed in the middle section of the field, how are they just trotting through us like that? Like Dorgu and Fernandez exchanged like 6 passes, and no one's got their boot on the ball. It's crazy. His selection Sunday rattled me. why has he chosen this game to go with Jesus in the 9? Because he had an all right game against Inter Milan. Like, straight away, we didn't pin in their two centre halves. The two centre halves played 5 yards higher up, which means we didn't stretch Casemiro, who's 34 years old or whatever he is, and playing on old legs. So we've allowed Casemiro to have a game because Mainu wouldn't be able to do both their running, because Gyökeres would have pinned them right back on the edge of their own box, and then Odegaard could have played higher in the press. You've played Trossard with Jesus. He's only played with Martinelli so far this season. Hincapi comes straight in after 6 weeks out as to Mark Ahmad, when Timber should have played and White should have played. I just think they got everything wrong Sunday, mate. And yeah, it was great, and we were 7 from 7 in the Champions League. And people keep telling me we're top of the Champions League. It don't mean dick. It doesn't mean anything. It's the group stages of the Champions League. We could go out in the first round of knockouts. What are we going to do and say, well, we won the group stage? What, you fucking mental. Like, it doesn't mean anything. The only benefit from it is the fact that we get a home leg in the 3 sets of 2 match ties, which is a slight advantage, but it doesn't guarantee you a final. PSG finished 7-4-8 last year and got through everyone and went on and won the tournament. It doesn't make that big a difference. So, being top of the Champions League is fine, but if it was leading to momentum because you were setting out a footnote as to the way in which you're playing in the Premier League, but it looks like 2 totally different teams. And the difference is, with cup football on the continent, other teams play 5 yards higher up, and they try and they're trying to take points off you in all of those games. In the Premier League, teams will play a marathon-based football where they'll suppress, and they'll be happy with a point if they come to us, but they will try and take 3 points out of you. And that's where, from a technical and cohesion and and technical ability, and in essence, just some actual composure is required to break an opposition down. We have not done it, mate. Che was messaging me earlier, and we were talking about Liverpool. How have we respected Liverpool so much, mate? We've not even laid a glove on them. We've had 1 shot on target in 180 minutes. They've conceded 32 goals in the league. They're not good this year, right? And we haven't even tried to beat them in 2 ties. It's not good enough, Smugs. It just isn't good enough in the Premier League, mate. And realistically, if he'd have had any bottle or any desire to go and beat teams, we'd be 10 or 11 points clear now, and we're laughing that this thing will be over before we go City away. And actually, we're 4 points clear. We've got Leeds away Saturday. Yeah, all right, City have got a couple of tough games coming up, but we're 4 points clear, and now every single Premier League game's a fucking cup final.
I think one thing that frustrates me at the moment, is everyone keeps going about City, but Aston Villa are sitting there. 4 points adrift. Just gone out and done some business this week. Do you know what I mean? Strengthening their squad. Like, to be honest, the way I look at it over the last 4 to 5 months, Aston Villa have been the most informed team. When you look at it, they're probably the only one that's put on a massive string of results together in one go. Look, we did beat them comprehensively at our ground in the end, but I feel like at the moment we're all putting our eyes on Manchester City and totally kind of forgetting that Aston Villa are sitting there as well. And it really does concern me, that actually we're a week away from transfer window, Shane. I don't expect us to do any business. It's not usually our style to do business, but these 2 clubs are 4 points behind us and have made big moves in the transfer window. Obviously, Man City have made the bigger moves by bringing in Semyon and Mark Guehi. But this was the opportunity, wasn't it, in January for me to extend that lead. When you sit there and think about it, that actually we took 2 points out of 9. And when you look at the fixtures, you think Nottingham Forest, they were 4th from bottom at the time. Now, I did say that I felt like their position's a little bit masked, and I think I'm backed up with that with their result of the weekend at Brentford. I don't think they'll finish 4th from bottom whatsoever. I think there's much worse teams than them. And look, Man United got a really positive result against Manchester City, but we should have been looking at them points, yeah, right. Especially what happened in the results leading up to each game week. So Aston Villa and Man City had already played by the time we played Nottingham Forest. My concern is what the players are showing on the pitch. Like, you'd think that they'll be well up for it, and like I'd take us losing a game or drawing a game all day long as they've gone out there. And I feel, do you know what? You've given it your 100%. You look like
that is a golden point, and I think that's the difference when because you and I watched Arsenal under Wenger. We would come out of the Emirates disappointed because we'd had 20 pops on goal. And we just hadn't got the ball over the line. The keeper had a worldie, or we didn't have our shooting boots on, or we just couldn't take our chances on the day. And we'd end up having a 0-0 against a mid-table team. And you just think, God, on another day, Nasri, just, he should have had that trick today, or Fabregas this, or Adebayor or that, or Walcott. He's just got to stop squandering chances. That's the difference. Do you know what I mean? We were pinned on the edge of their box playing football, trying to unlock them, and then he got a bit of a birth of it when he brings Ozil in and Sanchez in, because then he has two players that are the difference makers, because he brings in world-class footballers, and we sort of solved that situation, and they managed to make players around them who'd have probably average careers to that point at the Arsenal by the standards that we held them to, like a Walcott, like a Giroud. It made them look good because they were playing with players that could just raise it that extra 5%. But we don't even pin them in on the edge of their box, mate, and try passes and pop it through the channels now and have somebody there who goes and cuts a line with a line breaking pass or just is the difference. And Che was just messaging me just before this, and he says, "Look, I really like Gyökeres. I want to really like him, but I haven't had an opportunity to see anybody find him, anybody try and find him. I see him making a load of runs, but they all seem to be wasted. And we don't know if the geezer's any good or not yet, because he hasn't actually missed a barrage of chances. Like, he's just trying to get his head on a half chance, or we're trying to. This is the thing with Gyökeres. He's scored 97 goals in the last 2 seasons, and I ain't seen a single goal he scored with his head. But now we're asking him to score headers. Like, well, why? Why are we doing that? Actually, at the front of the pitch, other than Gyökeres, who's 6'2", 6'3", we're not that much of a tall team, because Mourinho doesn't start. Jesus is 5'9", Martinelli's 5'10", Trossard's 5'8", Saka's 5'9". What are we doing? Why are we trying to score headers against 6'3" defenders? Why would that be your strategy? If you've got explosive, technically gifted players who can be tricky in and around the box and break the line, why would you not find somebody in space and have them cut the pass? What if we bought Eze for? Question to you, Smugs. Why have they bought Eze? Because at the moment, I've only got 2 answers. It was a panic buy because Havertz got injured again. And the other thing was just because it was for media attention because Spurs were about to sign him. Other than that, I generally can't fathom what we've bought him for at the moment, because he's not being used in games to help us unlock low blocks, which was the reason that we were poor last year.
I can't answer the question about Eze at the moment because I'm very frustrated with the situation. I'm a bit frustrated how the situation's occurred. I think he's been treated differently, if I'm being totally honest, to other players. Okay, he didn't track Matt Cash. What about Subamendi? He bottled out that Inter Milan goal. Show he's back to that player, even though it was a great finish. And then he does what he does on Sunday. So, do you know what I mean? The problem with Mikel Arteta at times, right? My biggest problem with him at times, he's too stubborn. He's too stubborn, and he won't make the changes when he needs to make the changes. So when I say that, right, and I want to throw this back at you, Jim, because I want to get your understanding on this one. What was your thoughts of him making 4 substitutions at one time on Sunday? Because I thought not only did he show his hand with that a little bit, but that was down to his own naivety or stubbornness again, that he didn't make the right substitutions when he should have made the right substitutions at half time.
I thought he just panicked, if I'm being honest. I've never seen like changing four outfield players is pretty much changing all but half the team. So it's not just bedding like one or two players in and you're executing an existing strategy. You're pretty much changing the entire dynamic of everything on the pitch. So the other six players have then got to get their heads together and and then kind of adapt a new thing. To give him his dues, I don't want to really lay into Saka too much. I actually thought Saka was having a pretty good game on on Sunday, and I think he had the running of Luke Shaw in the main, or he's definitely caused him enough troubles. And then he brings Madueke on, moves Saka to the left hand side when Madueke was what we believe was signed as an alternative player to play on the left wing and a backup to Saka on the right wing. And Saka's got the running of his left back, and he moves Saka to left wing, who's never played there really, or hasn't played there for 4 years. Really, he has been a expert right winger, and then he moves Madueke to Luke Shaw. And it somewhat almost takes Saka out of the game because it changes the entire dynamic of what we were trying to do in the attack. And I just don't, I can't. Again, Martinelli's been quite impactful off the bench, and they with tired legs, I think he would have been far more direct at Dalot than Saka, who was probably trying to come infield, and not go outside the fullback. So I didn't understand it. Marino come in, and I can understand that substitution because he's a box crasher and he's off the set pieces. He's another asset. I thought Gyökeres did very well off the bench. Actually, I thought straight away he showed why he should have started that game because he gave Martinez a nightmare the minute he come on, and he pinned them in. He got physical with them. He bought fouls. He had a couple of nice flicks around the corner. He had a pretty solid chance on goal, which I think he ended up getting because he sent Martinez back to Old Trafford. The ref's giving it as a foul, but he gets a shot off, and Lamens actually makes a good save if you see it from the other angle. People think he scuffed it. Lamens actually gets a big hand on it, and it deflects off him when it should have looked like he squared it, but the goal would have got chalked off anyway, I think. But and I thought he did okay when he come on, and I thought Ben White was poor when he come on because he just didn't really know how to impact the game. And actually, when we were in the ascendancy and we are chasing the game, probably the right person to bring on at left back was Lewis Skelly because he's technically probably the best out of all of them on the ball. So I honestly, mate, I'm really struggling with the gaffer and understanding what he's trying to do because in the last three league games, we just are not. It's the same old issue is just constantly reoccurring, which is that we are not creating any chances in open play for our attackers. So now, when you're reading these stats off about Gyökeres open play goals, Saka goals, someone sent me a stat earlier saying Odegaard's got 4 Premier League goals since April last year, which is crazy. It's pittance for the position he plays. And there's no dynamism in the way in which we play. And still, even though we were chasing the game and we were at home, he still made like for like changes, and he didn't. It was only until the 82nd minute or something like that where he took Zubimendi off and brought a slightly more attack minded player on. And really, like you've mentioned before, with these games at home, there isn't a need always to go Zubimendi and Rice. They're very much of the same player in a lot of the time, and not one of them is doing a very different job to the other. It's not like one's getting his foot on the ball and driving at the opposition, or they're cutting the line and putting the wide player in. They are both playing quite a similar position in the double pivot where they're just like rotating possession of the football and retaining the ball in areas of the pitch where we're gaining territory, and neither of them are the creative spark. So they should either be trying to rotate the ball between the two of them and get the ball into the attacking 10 to break the to break the opposition down, or one of them needs to just have a slightly different angle to their game as to how like we can move the ball through the channels and break a block. But like neither of them really do it. You know, Zubimendi's made a couple of neat passes throughout the season. Probably the one that I remember most was that little flick around the corner for Gyökeres against Atletico Madrid, and Oblak makes a good save. But I can't really. I can't really remember many occasions where in open play either of them are being very creative. And you know, when I see the manager's press conference today, I'm going to read it out because I sent you the paragraph on it, and I'm going to quote Mikel Arteta. And it was so encouraging and beautiful because what came out of this is very simple. We have earned the right to be in a great position in 4 competitions, and in the next 4 months, we're going to live and play with enjoyment, with a lot of courage, and with the conviction that we're going to win it. And that, when I read that, maybe it's the sinister side of me after what's happened post Sunday, but I feel like he's just sat there. And if I'm assuming that he is talking directly to me as a fan, I feel like he's just lying through his teeth at me, because that suggests to me that the style of football will change immediately and we will start playing expressive football and taking risks. And I do not believe, and I'm keen to get your opinion on it, that is in his makeup to play like that, because we haven't played like that for 3 or 4 years.
He's got to back up his words, isn't he? In my opinion, if he's going to come out and say something like that, he needs to deliver. And the only way he delivers is by showing it on the pitch. Only time will tell, if I'm being totally honest. At the moment, does it need it? 100% it does. Do I see him doing it? If he doesn't do it, he ain't winning the Premier League, in my opinion. And I know that sounds quite damning at the moment, but that's where we're at. That's where we're at, because you can't just keep relying on Man City to slip up. Do you know what I mean? You can't rely on Aston Villa to slip up. This title race, if we're being frankly honest with you, should all be over after what Man City's January. It should be. It's not even like we've been playing games before them. We've been playing games after them. So when we go and play like your likes like Manchester United, your Nottingham Forest, we already know what's happened at the other grounds. So you're sitting there thinking, do you know what, the boys are going to be well up for this now? Do you know what I mean? We're going Nottingham Forest. We could end up being 9 points clear, whatever it is at the time. And then you just see the performance that they go out there, and it's just like they're going through the motions. And it's like, do you guys actually realise what you could be if you go and do this and bring this club, Premier League back to this club? You raised a really good point to me yesterday, Jim. We've had some unbelievable players, mate. This is what you said to me. We've had some unbelievable players at this club that's not been able to bring that Premier League trophy back over the years. Robin van Persie, Cesc Fabregas, Alexis Sanchez, Mesut Ozil, Aubameyang, Santi Cazorla. You guys have got the option here, yeah, right, to put your name in Arsenal folklore. For me, there can't be a bigger incentive than that. Do you know what I mean? And I want to see, all I want is to see my club go out there and give it 120% each game. All I want is for my club to go out there and do whatever they can to get that trophy in our cabinet by the end of the season. That's all I want them to do. But I'm sorry, I haven't seen it over the last month in the Premier League. I haven't seen it. I've been disappointed nearly every game I've watched us play in the Premier League, if I'm being totally honest. I said it the other week. Do you know what I mean? Apart from the Aston Villa second half, I'm sitting there frustrated. And I'm sitting there thinking, why am I frustrated? We're 7 points clear. Because actually, we should be 11 points clear. Okay, you might not win a game. Do you know what I mean? Something might happen. These things do happen. But at least go out there and make sure that you've done absolute everything to determine that game. And I'm sorry, the tactics that we're playing, the style of football we're playing, yeah, right, it's percentage game football at the end of the day. And you can only become 1-0 winners over a certain amount of times before you start becoming the other side of it, as we found out at Aston Villa. Do you know what I mean? Like, Mikel Arteta is the one for me and his coaching team that needs to change. That you can see by the expression on the players' faces at the moment that that they got the weight on their shoulders. But I'm sorry, people going on about the fans and all that, Arsenal, the expectation of the Arsenal fans, this and that. I'm sorry, stop throwing Arsenal fans under the bus here, yeah, right? It's not the Arsenal fans that are going out there and playing this style of football. Did I agree with the booing Sunday? I didn't boo naturally myself. I was shocked how loud the boos were, if I'm being totally honest. But I'm telling you now, Jim, that weren't because of that performance on Sunday. That was because of what they've watched over the last 2 months. That is because of what they see at Wolves, what they see at Brighton, what they see at Crystal Palace in the League Cup, what they see at Liverpool. Do you know what I mean? And then what they see at Man United. Because they're concerned. They're worried. We're all worried. We're all worried that actually, are we going to bottle this, right? And let's be honest, if we bottle it this time, it's a bottle of all bottles. And we're not going to live it down. We're not going to live it down if we bottle this. Of course we're not. Because it should be pretty much in the bag at the moment. And for me, and I'll say it again, one man who's got the luxury of being the Arsenal football manager of this club has got a very, very big 3-4 months ahead of him. He'll either go 2 ways now. He'll either go on to be an absolute legend, see us over the line. Because look, let's be honest, we're still in the League Cup. We could get to a final next week. We're still in the FA Cup. We are in the Champions League. But all them 3 tournaments, yeah, right? We could easily go out in tournaments as well. We could easily go out of any of them tournaments. We could get knocked out next week, for all we know. Am I 100% confident we'll go and beat Chelsea next week? Chelsea will watch that, watch what Man United done to us on Sunday and think, do you know what? We've got a chance here. We've got a big chance. Just get up them. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to try and get up us. And we got to see that over the line on Tuesday, first and foremost, because for me, we need to get that trophy into this cabinet. And I'll say it again. It's not acceptable for a club the size of Arsenal not to have won the League Cup since 1993. Do you know what I mean? I've been fortunate I've seen us win it twice, but twice in my lifetime. Really? Like, I sit there and I think we should have won that trophy at least 3-4 more times. But Mikel Arteta has to make the change now. He has to make the big, big, big decisions. And do you know what, right? He had a big decision made for him, yeah, right? Probably even before he joined in the club at the time when Xhaka got taken the captaincy off him, yeah, right? And look, Aubameyang was never a skipper for me whatsoever. And what I'm trying to say is, though, yeah, right, that if Odegaard does, he's not going to get the captaincy taken off him. See, he doesn't deserve to get the captaincy taken off him. But for me, if he's not starting, then someone else has to be captain that team. He needs to make a big decision, whether that's Saka or whether that's Declan Rice or whether that's Gabriel. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm totally with you. Look, we're going down the easy road with the captaincy, in my opinion. Yeah, where we give it to the longest servant person or someone who's been there for a while. Do I agree with that? No, I don't whatsoever. I don't agree with it whatsoever. But Mikel Arteta needs support from on the pitch now. He needs to realise, yeah, right, that he's got a set of players, yeah, right, that can play fucking football. They can play football. When they want to play football, they play it pretty well, as we see at Aston Villa in the second half. He needs to let his players play football. He needs to stop this 100%. I need to be involved in absolute everything now, because do you know what? Yes, you did back in the days when you had the likes of Cedric, when you had the likes of Rob Holding. Do you know what I mean? Like you had the likes of El Neni, because they weren't good enough. But you've got players now that aren't good enough. You've got world-class players. You've got Declan Rice. And look, key moment last year. They went against coaching orders, Jim, to score that free kick against Real Madrid. They went against coaches' orders. And that's what needs to happen now on the pitch here, right, a little bit more. That players need to go and express themselves and do what they think's right. Because at the end of the day, yeah, right, they're the ones that will want to be league champions. They're the ones that need to go that extra step. But they need to be allowed the responsibility to make them decisions on the pitch. And I will say this lastly before I pass back to you. I thought it was really, really poor of Mikel Arteta on Sunday that he made 4 substitutes when he did. Like, yeah, he nearly got out of it, but it was weak management in terms of that he didn't make the right decisions at half-time. I would have been taking Subamendi off straight away at half-time and Jesus. I'm sorry, both of them should have come off. Both of them should have come off at half-time. Like, I think Subamendi's got a bit complacent, if I'm being totally honest with you. I think he's got a little bit complacent, as you see with a goal. And I think at the moment, my personal opinion is, mate, I'd have Declan Rice in that defensive midfield role at the moment. I'd put him back in that defensive midfield role, right, and let him fucking lead it and run it. Let him run that midfield. Let him run it, right? Because do you know what? I would have an Eze on the left hand side, but I'd have him further up the pitch so he can get right amongst Gyökeres, because I think that is exactly what he needs. He needs a player of Eze's capability who can play on that final third of the pitch and make things happen. And I know he's not fit yet, but if he is fit, I'd bring Kai Havertz back in. Now, I know what Arteta's going to do. He's going to put Kai Havertz back up front, but I'd like to see him in the Odegaard role. I'd like to see what he would do in the Odegaard role, pushing up as well.
Yeah, mate. You've asked me my ideal 11 before, and you've pretty much just kind of named it. So I'd like to see Rice in the midfield. I'd actually like to see Rice in the midfield, probably with Odegaard and Havertz, because I would still play Eze on the left and allow him the capacity to play kind of in the free role in that channel where he's pinning himself to Gyökeres. But I think he'd also have the ability, like he did against Forest, where the ball goes over the top because he's quite two-footed, to square the ball across the face of goal and put it right in a danger zone where Gyökeres can pounce on it. So, but we're not creating chances like that. Yeah, look, I think the substitutions at half time were like abundantly clear. I think Jesus was really struggling to make an impact in the game. He wasn't pinning them in. He got pushed off the ball a few times. Physically, he wasn't quite where he needed to be because they don't play with so much support on the front man. So he didn't have anyone kind of pulling off of him to help him like shift the ball around the corner or pop it off and go. Whereby Gyökeres is okay, incapacitated a little bit by defenders and can hold his own. So, you know, the league is so physical. He would, you know, he can do that. Where I don't think Jesus can. I think Havertz would be able to do that. But I think the two of them together, Havertz and Gyökeres, would be lethal. I think it would be really good. But you know, you made a point about Aubameyang as skipper there, and this is the point that you have a skipper that operates in two fashions. He was a maverick in the sense that, you know, he wore all of the funky clothes, he had the gold Lamborghini, and he used to make it count on the pitch. You know, we're not forgetting that he won the Golden Boot 2 seasons in a row as skipper, and he could impact a game with output, which is very similar to when he was young, Fabregas used to do. But he actually grew into a brilliant captain as well. Cesc, he used to lead. He used to lead a young team quite well. The problem that they've got in Odegaard and Saka is that just neither of them have really grown into their stature as a footballer yet, where they have that meaningful presence on a pitch where the other side is impacted by them. But you know, I hope we see it, because we've shown and we've put a footprint down in the Champions League that we can break other teams down. And the thing that I do not understand is, which is just so obviously clear to me, it's more like the accountant in me just looks like it you know, who it's very, if you pin teams in their own third and you play there and you take risks there, it's very, very difficult for them to score from 70 yards out. They've got to travel a long way with the football to then go and score. But if you're playing with the ball with all that technical ability on the pitch, and you want the ball 50% of the time to sit between Zubimendi, Rice, Gabriel and Saliba in a box, it makes no sense to me 30 yards out from your own box, and you've got Raya who's like on the edge of his box, desperate to touch it as well. Then you've got all these other technical players on the field of play just watching a game happen behind them. And I just do not understand it. I just can't get on board with it, and I can't fathom why they want to play like that. Because you know the thing is though, Smugs, when they do that and then they turn the ball out and the opposition think, okay, cool, commit 3 guys and press, When they turn that ball over and it hits the flank, we don't then go bang, 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 and like get the ball into an attacking position and go get a shot off on goal. We just progress the ball into the midfield, and then they get their shape back, and then I'll recycle it back to the centre half. And I'd somewhat understand it that if that's the way that you're starting to play. A couple of years ago though, mate, that is how we played. Because I remember that game, that goal that we almost scored and then scored against Man City, which was tagged as Arteta ball, where they played the ball around the back, they drew City in, and then Ben White sort of did that flick around the corner and he popped it in. Then the ball goes into midfield. It goes out to Xhaka. Xhaka curls one out to the flank. Ball comes across and bang goal, And in like 6 passes, we just took them out. It was beautiful to watch. But we don't go and do that. Once we draw them into a press and we break the block down in our own third, we then don't go pass, 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 and we're in behind. We're not. So we're playing the dangerous stuff in our own third, where we're trying to retain the football, but it isn't to go and then create a chance on goal. And you mentioned then about Arteta and the way in which and Chase put a comment in the tag, and some of the other guys have as well about how drilled and overcoached we are. But it feels to me like what we're trying to do is shake the football out to then get it into the final third in the flank area, or send the winger down the byline to deflect the ball out of play to create a dead ball situation. And if teams work out how to defend against us from dead balls, we look completely void of ideas as to how to go and score goals against them. And the set piece side of it should be a string. It should be a string in our bow. It should be an asset that we've got, where should a ball go out for a dead ball, we can then really punish teams, which is a bit how we played against Real Madrid. It should not be, this is our only thing and we're a one-trick pony. And I know you sent me a message earlier and you were beside yourselves at the comments that Paul Scholes had made about this would be the ugliest Premier League winner ever or whatever. But, trying to just neutralise that comment, I can understand where he's coming from, because for the neutral or for the football fan, or for certainly the footballer who played in the late 90s to early 2010s era, football is it is not attractive to watch the way in which the game that we're playing has gone in the Premier League. We look like we're almost controlled by data in the way in which that we're trying to win games, and the technically astute footballers, which should really be led through Odegaard and Eze, are just not expressing themselves on the field of play. And it's a tough one, mate. Honestly, it's a tough one. And I think we're going to keep scratching our head and going over it. And, even this... the point I wanted to make earlier, mate, sorry. Because do you remember you said about 10 minutes ago about... we were sniffing past these teams 1-0, 1-0, 1-0, or we were celebrating the fact that, and social media became a thing about teams not having shots on target against us. It's been 800 minutes since someone's had a shot on target. It's an incredible stat, etc., etc., etc. And the way in which I saw us get over those lines, where we had 2 own goals against Wolves and it was a last minute winner. We just scraped over the line against Brighton and Raya makes a arguably save of the season. X, Y, and Z, right? What we saw at the start of this season, when we went into about game week 7 or 8, and it was just before an international break, was a scenario where if we didn't get a positive result and Liverpool did, like bookmakers were talking about paying out on Liverpool already, because they'd signed Isak, they'd signed Wirtz, they'd spent 500 million quid, they built this team of superstars, and both those 2 players hadn't even got going yet, and I think they were going to be about 8 points clear. Well, but you and I were saying at the time, mate, they keep skanking results. They've had the one against Burnley, that Muppet from that ex-Man United player around balls it in the 94th minute. They've done a 95th minute against Bournemouth. Chiesa keeps popping up with goals from nowhere, and they were trying to get rid of him in the summer. Mate, well, you look at Liverpool now, how quickly your luck can turn when you're just getting over the line in the dying embers of a game. They're 14 points behind us, you know, 20 point switch up, Smugs. And we're talking about 15, 16 game weeks. We're only 23 games in. So the fact that we've shaved off 7 points in the last 3 weeks, we've still got 15 games to go. This is a team that lost an 8-point lead with 6 games to go. Don't get me wrong. Rob Holding came in for a Saliba, and you'd argue now that Mosquera or Hincapi or Calafiori, Norgard even, White, Timber, all these players can play centre half who are probably of more competent level than Rob Holding, without most respect. But the point is that it ain't over until technically, literally, it's over. Like it's impossible for someone else to catch you. And I said to you a couple of days ago, and we were ranting about this result straight after it had happened, and you were off having your walks around North London to clear your head. If we go into that game on April the 18th at City away, and it is a remotely impactful result as to if they win and they're within a point of us, or that game really we could really do, just because we've not got over the line in recent years, we could really do with that game being a dead rubber for us. Like, we need to be 7-8 points clear, and if they win, we're still 5 points clear with like 4 games to go, 5 games to go, and they still got to go lights out, and we'd still need to make 2 more mistakes. We could really do with that game not being a title decider at City away, because they have added 2 players. Both of them seem to have settled really, really quickly. I don't actually think we need anyone. I just think we need to change our style, and the squad that we have assembled need to be able to just fulfill some of their ability. We're 23 games in, Smugs, and our top scorer in the Premier League's got 5 goals. If there's anything crying out to tell you that there is an issue with the way in which we're playing, that has to be it. Mate, our top scorer's got 5 goals. Our second top scorer on 4 is own goals. We're top of the league. We're in all these competitions. I hear you, but that is glaringly obvious as a stat that is like, it's a breath embarrassing, mate.
So why are we scoring 3-4 goals in cup games? Why are we banging? I know Portsmouth, banging 3 goals in at Chelsea, banging 3 goals in at Milan. How and why are we doing that? But we can't take it into our Premier League form. I get that teams are setting up differently, but it just blows my mind. It literally blows my mind. That statistic in terms of the goal scoring record with all them forwards just absolutely blows my mind. Like, how are we the top? How could we have been potentially 9-10 points clear with that record over us? It's incredible when you think about it. It's absolutely incredible. But There's only a serious amount of time, like we say, that you can get away with that. And like you say, it is only just 23 games. There's still another 15 games left. Now, look, on a plus side, and it's very good to look at the positives. Do you know what I mean? We've already got rid of, in the first 5 games of the second half of the season, we've already got rid of Liverpool out of the equation, who are obviously top 6 team at the moment. You'd expect them to be top 4 by the end of the season, but you just don't know what they're going to do one week to the next. Aston Villa, that are top 3. Manchester United, that are in the top 5 at the moment. So you start looking at them, and you start thinking, actually, do you know what? We've got rid of some really, really tough games that everyone else has got to kind of play. But for me, it's time. It's time now that actually, do you know what? You took a big fat L. Someone went back to a game literally like 1997, 1998. But it was quite an interesting one when Blackburn beat us 3-1 at Highbury. And we was going through a dreadful one at the time, I remember. And that result changed it. And I think after that, I think there was, but look, we had proper captains back then. Tony Adams, he'd have been right amongst it. Do you know what I mean? In the changing rooms, but that result changed our whole season. That is what this Manchester United game needs to do now. This Manchester United game needs to be the turning point where actually it goes, do you know what? We got beaten by the better team on the day. We haven't done ourselves justice today. We haven't done ourselves justice for the last month, if we're being frankly honest. What are we going to do to change it now? Do you know what I mean? And that's what this game's got to be. But you look ahead to Saturday, yeah, right? And actually, I actually think, right, Jim, and you might call me a bit crazy, I think this is the game we need Saturday. This is the kind of game that we need to prove that we're up for it by going to a stadium, yeah, right? Look, no one likes going to Ellen Road. It doesn't matter where you are or where they are, mate. They could be in League One, League Two. You know you got the crowd on top of you at Ellen Road. They love and breed football. You go into League, they were wearing Leeds shirts every day of the week. Do you know what I mean? They won't expect their team to be sitting there and playing defensive football on Saturday. They will be pushing their team to win a game because that's how they live and that's breathe. But I actually think that's probably the game that we need on Saturday to show us actually have we got the balls for this. Do you know what I mean? I honestly feel we can go there Saturday and get 3 points. I don't care how we get the 3 points Saturday, by the way. We just need to get the 3 points Saturday and then kick on. But for me, I think it's the ideal game Saturday. I'd rather go there to a tough ground Saturday and get a win than probably go somewhere like Wolves, if I'm being totally honest, Joe. Because I think the impact will be better if we go and get them 3 points.
And what on Saturday, if you're on Arteta's, management team, or and you're having a meeting Friday, what would be the team that you would pick on Saturday to start, in essence, that revolution of changing the way we play and kind of turning L's into wins?
I think you've got to be a little bit mindful on Saturday. I think, like, my opinion, yeah, right? I think you pick the team to win Saturday, but I think from Sunderland at home, that's where we need to make a big statement at home. But I will still make changes Saturday. Ray would obviously be in goal. Timber will be right back. California, if he's fit, back in at left back. Hopefully he'll get some minutes tomorrow. So I think he'll be a massive plus for us. I honestly think he'll be a massive plus. Saliba and Gabriel at the back. I would go Declan Rice in defensive midfield Saturday. This might surprise you for Saturday. Mikel Merino, right-hand side of the three. Eze, left-hand side of the three. I would start Martinelli because actually he's not got a bad record at Leeds, if you look back. Saka and Gyökeres.
Yeah.
I honestly, mate, I think we need Declan Rice in that defensive midfield, mate. I think we need someone in there, mate, who's got that bite, mate. And I think he can lead better. I reckon he could lead better as well from in there. Let him do that job, mate. Let him do that job. Let Eze flourish. Mikel Merino will do a job on Saturday. Mikel Merino will definitely do a job on Saturday. Do you know what I mean? And like you said, he's another threat from set pieces. And I'd have Martinelli. I think I'd start Martinelli on Saturday because I just think, right, that. And not look, I'm not Martinelli's biggest fan whatsoever, but he scored a few goals at Ellen Road, and I do believe in certain things like players do turn up at certain grounds, have good memories, and all that kind of stuff. And I think, look, Trossard, as I said to you with Trossard, I know me and you have had a bit of a conversation about this, and I've said this to you. For me, Trossard, after 60 minutes, if you're going to start him, you've got to take him off, mate. He's got to come off. Like, he's gone after 60 minutes. Do you know what I mean? That's not his fault, but he's just not a 90-minute player whatsoever. But I think he'll be a good player to maybe impact to have on the bench, bringing on in that game.
Yeah. His legs are in the last stages, aren't they? He's 31 now or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
What about you?
Yeah, I like a lot of it, Matt. This is going to sound contrary to many opinions, but
yeah,
I don't think Timber's been great for a little while, if I'm being honest. I think I've said this from broken record, haven't I? But I've said this from the start of the season. I'm a massive Ben White fan, and I do believe Ben White makes the best of Bukayo Saka because he overlaps him, he pulls a defender out, and he allows Saka then to go in field, pop the ball inside and play a 1-2, or he allows Saka to put him in the flank, and he's a better crosser of the ball than Timber. And I do think that he is somebody who overlaps and as a right-footed player on the right flank drives the ball across the face of goal and creates things. I think we've got to go there and win. We can't sit back and wait for it to happen. So I'd be open to Ben White at right back, but I don't dislike Timber. And the only other thing I would potentially think of doing would be to play Jesus in the left wing and let him play on that left hand side with Gyökeres and let him have a go at a fullback. And then actually, he does do his defensive work quite well, and he can be afforded to play in a bit more of a free role and interlink a little bit because he's not the focal point centrally. And I actually believe someone like Gyökeres, who plays the way he does, who pins the centre halves, would actually give Jesus a much better run in and around the flank because he'll free him up to get one-on-one with his man. And I think Jesus is someone who could carry the ball into the box and draw a foul. And probably, he's quite good at getting fouled as he draws the ball into the box, and you might end up with a penalty or the ball might drop to a player who can get a shot off. So that'd be the only two things within that. I mean, I'm desperately keen to get Calafiori back at left back. But yeah, I don't disagree, mate. I do think it might be valuable for Zubimendi for a week or two to just come out the side, regroup. He's probably used to a winter break, isn't he? So he's played a lot of football for Arsenal.
He's more likely going to play tomorrow night as well, mate. That's the thing you got to. Well, actually, might not play tomorrow night, but he's got the game against Chelsea in the league.
Well, Rice can't play tomorrow. He's suspended. So Rice is suspended for
and
the
Marino as
game.
well, isn't it?
So it's probably likely that Zubimendi might play. He might try Zubimendi in the 8 and play Norgard in the 6.
Yeah, I think that could be a possibility tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? Like what I'd like to see at some point in the game tomorrow. You made a good point. Like, and what I'll go back to something like when we were talking about Odegaard taking out, I weren't really naturally talking about tomorrow night because actually tomorrow night I think it's a prime time that you could potentially play an Odegaard and Eze in the same team. Why not try it in a dead rubber game? What have you got to lose tomorrow night? Do you know what I mean? Like, what's the worst case scenario? We lose the game, which, let's be honest, is pretty very slim. It's very, very slim. Do you know what I mean? That we're going to go and lose that game tomorrow night whatsoever. But I don't want to go. I don't want to put my TV on tomorrow night and obviously watch the game and think we're just playing the same style of football. Like, do something different. Do you know? Play something different. Play your Odegaard and Eze. Do you know what I mean? And put Norgard behind them. Do you know what I mean? Rest of Mendy. Give him half hour at the end or something. Do something a little bit different. You know what I mean? Because I want to see us play a little bit differently and see what we can do if Eze and Odegaard are in the team. Look, I know they're not playing your Manchester United. I know there's going to be a little bit of discipline when you obviously start picking a different team, but he had no hesitation of playing Odegaard and Eze against West Ham at home. It was only because Odegaard went off injured after 20 minutes that didn't happen. We've never seen it again.
Yeah.
So he has put it on the pitch before. So for me, I would personally, right. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, actually, obviously I said about Marino Saturday. If you said to me, what would your midfield be tomorrow night? I'd probably go with Norgard with Eze on the left and Odegaard on the right. And then put Madueke. Gyökeres will play out front for me because he didn't play at the weekend. And look, he just needs to score goals. It doesn't matter how. Get him in the team again. Let him score some goals. Do you know what I mean? And obviously, Martinelli will play on the left because he didn't play on Sunday. So you'd expect him to start. But that's what I want tomorrow night, mate. That's what I want. That's what I want to see. I want to see him play them two together. And I want him to give Eze the freedom to be able to do what he's going to do. Because Odegaard will naturally come back deep anyway. Do you know what I mean? That's what Odegaard does. So
yeah,
gives Eze the freedom to be able to kind of do what he's got to do. And he's got to get the confidence back into these players, mate. Because Eze last year when he won his club an FA Cup against all odds, mate. And he was the focal reason why they won that. He has got that capability. Do you know what I mean? It's not that he's a bad player because he's not a bad player. He's a good player. He's a fucking very good player. You don't score a hat trick against Tottenham if you're not a good player. Do you know what I mean? He turned up playing for us. So I'm not believing that Eze is not good enough to play for his football club whatsoever. No one's making me believe that whatsoever. When you read it, Eze is not good enough. No, it's because he's not been allowed to play football. Let him play football. He's a maverick. That's what we wanted. We wanted a maverick in the club. We wanted someone to be there that we could sit there and marvel at. Do you know what I mean? Like we used to marvel at Dennis Bergkamp. Do you know what I mean? We've had so many great creative players over here. Cesc Fabregas, what a fucking player he was, eh? Like I see someone put a comment about him earlier on. Like unbelievable player, unbelievable. Even Mesut Ozil, the maverick moments. Let Eze do that. Let Eze be that man. Don't let him be that guy who's got to fucking sit 60 yards away from goal and he's got to defend a certain zone. Because all you're doing, yeah, right, is wasting another great creative talent. And we have got so many good players. And that is why we're frustrated. And that is why, yeah, right, the crowd have switched on Sunday because they're fed up of seeing it because they know how good they are. We know Saka can score 15 goals a season. We know he can do that. Put him in the right positions, he can do that.
And it should be really where he is getting to at this stage of his career. He's what, 250, 300 games in. He's not a puppy anymore. He's a seasoned professional. And if he wants to be considered as one of the best wingers in the world, and he's about to receive the salary that suggests he is, it should be a minimum requirement of him as well. You know, it should be a minimum expectation of himself. 15 goals in 50 games. It's actually not that much.
No.
You know, we put so much onus on Henry in our golden era. You used to forget that Bergkamp, Pires, and Ljungberg used to always get over 10 goals, more like someone like Bergkamp be like 15, 18 a season without fail. You know, Bergkamp wouldn't even fly abroad, so you know he wouldn't play. You know, it took him ages to travel to away games. If you listen to all the stories or whatever, so you know, there has to be more goals at the top end of the pitch. These stats that keep flying around, you know, they're dismal, and really they need to go out and express themselves now. And everyone needs to get a bit greedy. I do think Gyökeres should play a bit tomorrow night. I think it would be useful for him to go and have a run out and try and get a goal or two, you know, and then get pulled at 60 minutes to a standing ovation at home, and then be fresh and confident for Saturday, because then he's probably going to have to play Tuesday night again as well, and the games come thick and fast. But you know, after Tuesday, after tomorrow night, sorry, the Champions League's done for a month or so. So you know, there'll be a little bit more rest in between games. I really want to see Kai as well. I do want to see him come back, but I don't want to see Kai come back as someone who's going to push Gyökeres to the sidelines, because everyone's been crying out saying, is he the guy? Is he good enough, Gyökeres? Well, the minute that we didn't start him in the 9, we looked really vulnerable at the top end of the pitch on Sunday. It was glaringly obvious that we missed him Sunday, I thought. His presence, his physicality, the way he pins the defenders, you know. Because Jesus was completely immiscible from the game, because he does actually, whether he's coached to do that by Arteta, which would seem odd the way Arteta sets us up, but he plays in a very anti-Arteta format where he just trots around the pitch aimlessly, you know, and just doesn't have any distinctive shape or balance to the way in which he operates as a central 9. So I think they've missed. I think we missed that in the first half, and I agree with you. Going back to that game, you know, they should have made the changes at half time, but you know that one's in the past now, and we've covered it off to death. So, you know, I think tomorrow's a good opportunity for them to like literally from kickoff go and like properly put it on Kairait for 25 minutes. Go grab a couple of goals, you know, get some goals into a couple of the players, and then rotate out at 55, 60 minutes and freshen them up, but have them walk off the pitch to, you know, to an applauding crowd, and just change the dynamic in the stadium for the away fans that are going to go up to Leeds on Saturday. But I would start setting this team up in a very different manner, and allowing them to take the pull the plaster off a bit. One play you didn't mention then, mate, when you were mentioning some great Cesc, Dennis, Mesut. if you remember in previous weeks, when we've had the conversations in Ask Jim about, if you could bring back one player from the Emirates era, who would it be? In the more recent weeks, I've actually changed my opinion on this. And I would say that the person, and I've mentioned him to you a couple of times in our off air chats, the one person to me who is glaringly obvious that would impact this team, and Arteta played with him, is Santi Cazorla. I think his technical aptitude as a central eight, who was left foot and right foot, very technically gifted, shot from distance, had the ability, because he was so two-footed, to break lines, create, just be dynamic in and around the final third. But he was so calm on the ball in and around the edge of his own box, where he could defend the ball, dribble the ball out, and technically, in a gifted way, like, get us out of trouble. I am beside myself sick of, like, when we're defending opposition attacks in and around our own box and a header goes up and we pick up the second ball, and the first thing we do is hoof the ball 100 yards into the air. I'm like, this is like when I used to play Sunday League football when I was like on my last legs as a footballer. This is not a £1 billion football team. Trossard did it 5 or 6 times on Sunday. I was going Garrity, mate. I threw my phone at the TV, the remote went, the whole 9 yards. You cannot, it is inexcusable to me to just have the ball and no first thought of getting the ball under control and trying to play the ball out and counter the opposition because they've committed people forward. We just rip the ball up to the halfway line. Maguire picks it up and they come again. We're the home side here, top of the league. It's not like, I don't know what you think about it, Smug, but I've seen us do it all season and it drives me bonkers, especially when you've got a number 9 who comes to us with a catalogue of goals, who plays on the shoulder, who wants to get in the channel one-on-one with his defender. Why can't someone just take a breath, get their head down and chip it into the channel, let him go and hold it up, and like let everyone can move up the pitch? We're hoofing the ball 100 yards in the air. You're sitting in the ground every week, mate. You must see it. And I don't know what the atmosphere is like or the people around you think when we do it, but it drives me fucking doolally.
Right, yeah, I know. I'm a very frustrated figure at the moment, if I'm being totally honest. I totally agree with you. Like, some of the stuff that I've seen over the last month is just absolutely ridiculous. Where we're just hoofing a ball out for touch, like, and I do agree. Like, when you sit there, right, and I've said it a few times over the last few weeks as well. Yeah, well, when you see us playing this football, you're thinking we're not playing like champions. Do you know what I mean? And I keep saying it, we need to start behaving like champions. We need to start behaving that we want to be champions. And when you're just hoofing a ball up in the air, do you know what I mean? Or you're just dropping totally deep against your Wolverhamptons at own in the last 5 minutes because you're only 1-0 up. For me, that's not behaving like champions. Do you know what I mean? Like the great teams that have gone by, the invincible team, obviously I'm going to say first and foremost because that's our club. Do you know what I mean? The triple winners of Manchester United, the Centurions of Man City, do you know what I mean? Even Jose Mourinho's Chelsea, do you know what I mean? You wouldn't see them hoofing a ball out for touch, do you know what I mean? Like the way we do. And I'm not talking about like an injury time because I can understand it when you're right back in the game. But sometimes I'm sitting there like after 70 minutes and I'm thinking, what are you actually doing? Do you know what I mean? Like, what are you actually doing? Like, surely no one's coaching you like this. Surely no one on the sideline is from the sideline is sitting there in the training sessions going, do you know what? We'll get to 70 minutes, actually. Just hoof the ball out. Just clear out the pitch, whatever happens. But that's what I'm coming to see, mate. And this is why I'm scratching my head, right? As I said to you earlier on, that rant about Scholes, yeah, right? I kind of get what you're saying, but I just think he pretty much gets on the bandwagon because he hates Arsenal. But I sit there, right, and I think, why? Why are we doing this? Like, we've got good players, mate. We've got really good players. We're talking about that. We got media talking about we're the best in the world. You can't be the best in the world doing that, mate. Do you know what I mean? If we're the best in the world doing that and playing like that, then it really doesn't say much about everyone else. And that's what I said to you earlier on. If we are that bad at the moment, and look, we ain't great at the moment whatsoever, but it just, and we're sitting 4 points clear, it pretty much tells you the standard of the rest of the Premier League. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's easy for everyone to go that, Arsenal will be the worst champions of all time. Okay, but what if Man City or Aston Villa win it now? Are they going to be the same? Are they going to be the worst champions of all time? Because this league is drab. Like, I watch games now. Do I get excited watching games in the Premier League? Absolutely not. Why am I getting enjoyed? Like, I've been brought up in an era where, do you know what I mean? You watch the passion, you watch the drive, but you also see absolutely fantastic footballers prevailing. This league has absolutely turned for the worst. It's turned for the worst. Every team's defensive minded. Every team, all they care about now is like teams trying to be like us at the moment, going from set pieces, throw-ins. And by the way, I think we're one of the worst at throw-ins, by the way. One of the worst. Like, honestly, like, I watched Ben White the other day, right, had the ball. I think it was Ben White. And it took him 10 seconds to take the throw-in. And the bloke he threw it to, he could have thrown it for at least 8 seconds before. And you're like, come on, mate. Do you know what I mean? Urgency. We're 2-1 down against Manchester United. Like, we've got, if we want to be champions, we want to, like, don't get me wrong, I want to get over the line first and foremost, but we're not going to get over the line by doing it that way. Do you know what I mean? You can't invite too much pressure on yourselves and expect to get away with it. And this is the piece now that he has to change. He has to change it. He has to change the style that we go out there and win games. Maybe he's thinking, do you know what? I just want to get through January. I know what a shit month it is, and then I'll start letting the shackles off a little bit. I don't know. Maybe that is what he's thinking. But when was the last time we let the shackles off? Like, we're talking Tottenham, like, and Aston Villa in the second half. But just let them off, mate, because when you've seen what we can do to teams at home when we do let the shackles off. Like, we destroyed Tottenham. It should have been, let's be honest, yeah, right? Tottenham should have been 5 or 6-1.
Yeah.
Tottenham should have been 5 or 6-1. Do you know what I mean? You look at the Aston Villa game, that could have been anything in the end. But on Sunday, I was watching a game and I'm thinking, if anyone's going to score again, it's Manchester United. So even though we did score from it, let's be honest, the only way we was going to score in that game was from a set piece, which we did. But it didn't surprise me when they scored again. And it certainly didn't surprise me when Cunha scored, because when he come on, I'm thinking, fuck. Do you know what I mean? Like, this guy's a talent. Cunha's a fucking top quality player, mate. We could do it like Cunha, if I'm being totally honest. He wouldn't have been a bad signing for someone like us. I think he's top quality. Top quality. And look, you give players like that 25 yards, they're going to destroy you. But you look at us, you think, we're never going to score a goal like that. We're never going to score a goal like that. We don't put ourselves into positions to score goals like that. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, it seriously needs a stance of change and pretty much soon, or otherwise we're going to be sitting here at the end of the season thinking, how did this happen? How did this happen? Because we are in the ascendancy. I've got no confidence, really, if I'm being totally honest with you, that Man City will go out and win every game, because I just don't think they're that good enough this year. I just don't think they are, mate. I just think defensively, Mark Guay come in and done really well. We know he'd do really well against Wolves, but there's bigger games ahead. Do you know what I mean? He's got to go. They've got to go to Liverpool, and that'll be an interesting game now, the Liverpool game. But I don't think they're going to win 15, 16 on a trot. Do you know what I mean? But at the same point, I don't think we are. Aston Villa, I think I don't think they'll win it, but as I'm saying, you can't rule them out. And if you keep throwing games away like you do, they're going to be right in the melting pot. So, do you know what I mean? It's really important that we put a good run together. I think February is quite tricky for us, mate. I think, like, going to Leeds on Saturday, like, Brentford away, maybe doing all right this year. Okay, they lost to Forest the other day, but they've been doing all right. But you would like to think we should beat them. But it's a night game. Sunderland at home, Granit Xhaka, he'll want to come back and prove something, won't he? He'll have the boys revved up for that game. North London derby. Look, Tottenham are shit, but they'll do anything they can to try and beat us. We know they're going to bend over on Sunday. Of course we know they're going to bend over Sunday, because that's what they do. That's what they do. That's what they are. Why they're Spursy. And then you've got Chelsea at home. So you look at the next 5-6 games, mate, and you think, fucking hell, do I guarantee that we're going to win 4 or 5 of them? I'm not sure at the moment.
Well, obviously, time will tell, and we'll see if he's true to his word in his press conference, and he goes and pulls the plaster off now. Because I reiterate, I don't really think we need to sign anyone. I think just on that point around Cunha, and a few of the guys in the chat are saying we should have gone for Semenyo, should have gone for Cunha. The thing that is getting highlighted now is we've committed a spend of 50 million quid on Nani Madueke, and he hasn't scored a league goal in over a year for Arsenal and Chelsea combined. And then Semenyo's moved for that sort of money, Cunha's moved for that money, and Buemo's moved for 50 mil. How much would Anthony Gordon cost? Nico Williams had a 58 million euro release clause until the middle of the summer, and we didn't activate that. And he can play left and right, and he's having a good season at Bilbao. There's all these things that are being a bit highlighted, and what we ended up doing is keeping our left-hand flank intact. And I know Martinelli scored a hat-trick in the Portsmouth game, but by that, him and Trossard have still not. One of them has not shone over the other, and they have not pulled up trees. And evidently, he's not signed Eze to play left wing, which I was convinced of at the start of the season, because he hasn't been playing him there as an alternative when the two of them haven't really been doing it. So, and he hasn't really played Noni in the left wing. He's really only impacted the games when Saka's been out, and he's played right wing. And whilst he's looked okay because he's quite explosive and he can beat his fullback, other than a really good game in the Champions League where he scored a banger, he's not really he's not really laid a marker down. In any he's definitely not really laid a marker down in a league game. And we look like a totally different team in the Champions League. So, there's a lot to be answered for. There's a lot of question marks over where we're at. It's the halfway point of the season, and we are still leading it, but it needs revitalizing. And they have to get their strikers scoring goals. They have to get goals into their wide players, and the captain is now in the ascendancy as to either he is going to stand by the loyalty that his coach has shown him and raise a level and go and put his hands on silverware in 4 months' time, or him and the gaffer, I think, are out the door. I don't think it's one or the other, and it will, and when Arsene Wenger ended up having to leave his post in 2018, I think it was. It was an opportunity for the Cronkies to hide behind that, especially as we had all the talk around joining the Super League and everything at the time. And, and they used that as an opportunity to basically, because they give him no money in the last couple of years, nothing like the money that that Arteta's spent. And also Emery did 135 million his first window, but they them two, if we don't go and get hands on trophies this year and we drop this lead and and we end up saying we finish second again, I cannot see a major overhaul in the squad this summer, which I think will be the manager. I think it'd be Odegaard, and I think a star player will leave that will need replacing. And I can't really look past Saliba or a Gabriel probably being one of those two players that will go. But my biggest fear is that Rice's contract is due for renewal this summer. And if we don't go and win something, and he's 27, he might think, I've come here, I was convinced of a project. I think it was probably likely it was going to happen, but for whatever reason, you either change the gaffer, and the gaffer comes in and says, "Declan, I'm going to make you skipper. We're going to win it all. Right? I'm going to build it all around you." Or he can pick any team in Europe. He can have his pick of. Do you know what I mean? City going to have to place Rodri. He's done. Bayern Munich would take him in a heartbeat. I think Real Madrid would have him. I think Barcelona would have him. I think he could go to any club in the world now, Declan Rice, and we've elevated him and put him on that pedestal. So I'm not saying he will leave. What I'm saying is we shouldn't give these players the opportunity to even consider it. It should be absolutely equivocal and concrete in their minds that this is the club to be at if they want to win a barrage of trophies in the next 1, 2, 3 years. And And the next 4 months are going to be integral to proving that.
Definitely. Look, I know obviously we've covered quite a lot of the show. Obviously I'm a bit mindful that we have got the Ask Jim section. So I think obviously what I'm going to do, Jim, I'm going to obviously go through some questions, but anything I've kind of I feel that we've answered, obviously I'll raise it and then just see if you want to add anything else onto it. Is that all right?
Yep, mate, far away.
Right, let's just get on there. And obviously, thank you very much, everyone, again for obviously whacking your questions in today. We have got a giveaway for today's prize. So obviously reached out to Martin early on, who's going to be happy to give away one of our popular N5 clocks. So obviously Jimbo's favourite question will get the luxury of winning that today.
Lovely.
All right, so let's go and find.
Also, Smugs, just before we start,
yeah.
Obviously when we started this, and and we're good pals, and we just enjoy doing this because we're passionate fans, and God knows how many games we've got between us, probably 700 plus, right? But to have 1.3 thousand people just in on the live, plus those guys on YouTube, like it's for those of people that just give up their time and come and engage, I just wanted to say, like, we're incredibly grateful, because didn't think so quickly into having a show that we would have such a barrage of people show love and time to come in and listen. So I just want to say thank you to everybody that does engage, because it's it's really special to have over 1,000 people, like, when you're hosting a live.
I think I've got to second that as well. Look, I think one of the things when we first done it, one of my slight concerns were the time we were going to do it, because obviously I finished work around 5ish. Obviously Jim's out in Dubai, so he's pretty much 4 hours ahead of us. So there were concerns, would we get the kind of viewers in? So to sit here tonight and see 1,357 viewers that have come into this pod this evening, I just think it's incredible going. And when I sit there and think, Jim, that actually between us, we've probably not even done double figure of shows yet, which I think that makes that even more kind of amazing in terms of obviously the people that have come in that have obviously enjoyed it so far. What you're seeing in terms of the chat, the feedback, inside the show, outside the show. Obviously, I get a lot of people as well commenting to me saying, like, in terms of cohesion, and I sit there and I think, do you know what? We're probably not even in double figures yet, mate.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think a bit pat on the back to us as well, but obviously a massive thank you to everyone that's obviously participating week in, week out, and obviously the questions are a massive part of this show. So thank you very much for contributing to them questions week in, week out as well.
Absolutely. Right, come on in. Hit me with your questions.
Right, first one, actually, Prudy, first person. I'm going back to front here, funnily enough. Ask Jim, do we think it's a mentality issue with the squad because their talent is not up for questioning, but when the crunch matches come, they don't seem to take their chance? Didn't capitalise on both City dropping points, perhaps too much pressure?
Yeah, an element of that, Prudy, definitely. I think that there is an undertone to the fact that these guys have not got it over the line before, so it's a new feeling, and for some of them, a good chunk of them, it's a here we go again sort of feeling, because a good handful of them have come close in the last few seasons and we've not got it over the line, but I think that is undermined by the leadership that have to dismiss any musings within the player group and create an ethos and an atmosphere that these guys are the best team in the land, and that that we should get this over the line, and accepting anything other than that in our performances and in our results is unacceptable, and holding them to a higher standard. So I think that whilst I think the mentality of it is definitely a characteristic, it's it is where Arteta needs to actually show that he's evolved as a manager, and he knows how to now get this done. Because if he doesn't do it this season, then unfortunately I think his race is run. and he is just not of the standard required because he hasn't experienced it before. And whilst that's incredibly harsh, because what he has achieved, the way in which he's turned the squad around in the last 6 years is very credible. One major trophy in 6 years for the investment that the ownership have made is an underperformance when you just go purely based on a results-driven business. But what he is in a position now, as he has been the last couple of years, but now specifically now with the squad that he's assembled, and you're quite right in regards to their ability level across it, is that he has to now get it over the line and find a way, and they have to find a way of making that work. So yeah, great question, but it's definitely a contributing factor.
Next question is from Tarek. Ask Jim, do you think anyone in his team apart from Gabriel that will end up at least 10 Premier League goals at the end of the season?
Well, I don't think Gabriel will end up with 10 Premier League goals this season. So yeah, I look. There is no reason why Gyökeres doesn't get to 10 Premier League goals by the end of March. If we actually play, he hasn't missed massive chances. I can only think of one massive chance, Smugs, that he should have taken, which was the one against Leeds, where the ball falls to him and he snatched at it. Other than that, I cannot think of a big chance that he has squandered. So, having half chances and bit part chances, and that is why he scored 9 goals in all competitions, I think, isn't it? And his XG is about 9.5. So he is on par with the chances created for him that he's converted. So the thing that the squad and the management and the technical team need to establish is, how do we get Gyökeres to the end of the season on 30 XG? That is what they should be working on. Because if we do, the math, and they love data, will tell us that he'll be on about 28, 29, 30 goals if we do. So that is what they need to work out. The problem is that the XG of all the players, and I did a tweet about it a couple of weeks ago, they are all on par with the goals they've scored in comparison to the expected goals they should have scored. So the problem remains the same. That is not that the players aren't scoring the goals. It is that we're not creating enough chances per player. So if we don't have a player get to 10 Premier League goals again, then it is a cardinal issue with the setup of the team. Because 38 games, for someone not to go 1 in 4, that is abysmal. So it shouldn't just be one, it should be more than one. Saka, Trossard, Martinelli, one of them all should get to 10 as well. Eze maybe even. He must have 4 or 5. He scored 3 in one game. So he would be another one. He has scored 10 Premier League goals in the last 2 or 3 seasons, I think. So he's another one who's used to doing it. But Gyökeres absolutely should be somebody that ends the season on, Smokes, what do you think, 15, 16 Premier League goals, something like that? What's that, another 10 from now when he's got 15 games to go? Something, he's been at the club long enough now. They've had enough time in the training sessions with him. If they actually serve him, I think he'll score goals. So I'm still bullish that I think he will end the season with 22-ish in all competitions, 20 to 22, which I think will be a pretty good return in his first season. But they must find him and they must give him the opportunity to do that. But yes, he would be the one that I would, if you're asking me to be a betting man, that will get to 10 Premier League goals plus.
Cool. Next question from Catherine. It's a pretty long one, so I'm going to try and do it slowly. Do you think that the congestion of the schedule is causing issues amongst the squad of rotation or the lack of rest? Since the North London derby, there have been 7 games every 3 to 4 days, 1 week break, then a run of 17 games, 11 played in a span of 18 played across all comps. Arsenal 112, drawn 4, lost 2. By lack of squad rotation, it's more in a sense that it's either all or nothing at all. Given our opponents tomorrow, I would expect us to at least make 4 changes, but could also just see it being changes for those that are suspended. In comparison to some of the other top of the teams competitors in at the moment, City have 111, drawn 3, lost 4. Villa have 113, drawn 1, lost 2, but got no Carabao Cup. Liverpool have only won 7, drawn 6, lost 3. And Chelsea have only won 8, drawn 5, lost 5. So do you
So,
feel that actually the lack of rotation is the reason why we're not winning games? I guess that's the meaning of that tweet.
well, the three of the five teams she mentioned now, Arsenal included, have played 18 in that period, and then two
Mm.
of them have played 16. So, um, so if it's not like it's unfair on Arsenal because we've played considerably more games than everyone else in that period. Named five teams, and two have played the same amount, and two have played two less games in that period. So, I don't I don't think it's a unfair task on Arsenal per se over other teams. Um, I think that the squad rotation element of it is the responsibility of the manager. I think we've mentioned on the show enough times that we just can't understand that he hasn't utilised Norgard more. Eze has played about 300 minutes of football since scoring a hat trick against Tottenham. Don't understand why. Um, Madueke scored in the Champions League and had probably his best game for Arsenal. Didn't kick a ball for 4 games. So, um, Havertz has been back fit now, or feels like he's been back in and around the first team squad for about 5 weeks, and there's like 1 10-minute cameo hasn't come on. So I think that he's had the opportunity, should he wish to rotate players in the team. He's just chosen not to. So he would be at foul for that. I think also Smugs and I made a point in previous pods, Smugs, if you remember, about the fact that because we don't go and close games out quicker, we don't get the opportunity to rotate players in game as well because we're going to the 90th, 95th minute where the game's incredibly intense and in the ascendancy because we've got to go and get like last minute winners or see games out. Whereby if we'd actually learned how to shut games down, like we did at the start of the season, Leeds, Forest come to mind, where we're 3-0 up after 55, 60 minutes, you can rotate 2, 3, 4 players at that point and get 30 minutes rest in the legs of these players over the course of a season. That adds up quite considerably. You do that 10 or 15 times, you've put 400 minutes of rest into Declan Rice's legs. So, that's quite a lot when you think
Mm.
about it. 400 minutes is 5 games off. So, there's a number of elements that contribute to it. But the schedule is the schedule because we're trying to be one of the top teams on the planet, which means that you've got to be in and around and be prevalent in 4 competitions. So I think that Arteta could have managed it better. Is probably my overall assessment of it.
Cool. Next question is from Alias. Oh, sorry, Alias. Ask Jim. Say we don't win the league, but end up going on to win the Champions League, FA Cup, and EFL Cup. Would you consider that a successful season, or would you rather
Yes.
we focus on the league?
No, I think everybody wants to win the Premier League as an Arsenal supporter. Like we've only won 3 Premier League titles, and it would be argued that that is not enough. Albeit Arsene Wenger managed, the lion's share of that period of time against the two greatest managers in Premier League history, in Alex Ferguson and Pep Guardiola, and also probably not far off that Jose Mourinho in and around the mid 2000s when Roman came in. So. It was a hard, it's a hard task, but I think we probably should have won one of the three already. That Arteta has finished a second, not last season. We weren't in a title race last season. You won't convince me otherwise. But one of the other two we should have won, and I think we probably should have won it the Leicester season as well. So, um, but if we were to win a cup treble and finally get that monkey off our back of winning a Champions League, absolutely it would be a successful season. I think even a domestic cup double would be a successful season, a League Cup and FA Cup. We've not won a trophy for 6 years. We're way too complacent and sometimes slightly too obnoxious as Arsenal fans to think that it's our God-given right to win the Premier League or the Champions League. We haven't won a trophy since COVID. And so I think we need to get over that line. I do think that if we could go, we've got 2 games to play in essence to win a trophy. The second leg against Chelsea and then probably Man City in the final. You go and win the League Cup, you can these players can feel what good feels like to then go and have the appetite to go and get it more and more and more. So I think the League Cup probably at this stage, not saying it will end up being it, but at this very point, is the most important trophy because they can go and get their hands on that in 6 weeks' time. And I think, Pep used to always say that it was the landing point as to winning the League Cup, used to give his players the buzz to then go and have like a really big moment in May. And I think we could learn a lot from that. And Arteta's been around Pep when he's done that. And I think he should be thinking that as well. So, I think it'd be really good for us to get the League Cup done. I know, Smugsy, you want that. And then I think, that would help us go on in the other three competitions deep into them, and try and bolt onto that as well. Don't you think, Smugsy? You want the League Cup, don't you?
Yeah, mate, I want it massively. I've said, I think it's a good starting point for us. It gets that monkey off the back, and do you know what? It might relax a few players a little bit more that actually we've got that first trophy, give them that little bit of hunger, do you know what I mean? To think, I want more by the end of the season. Because it's a bit of a luxury situation, is it, with the League Cup, that actually you can win that and still have a lot of time left to impact other competitions like the league, like the Champions League and the FA Cup. Where if you was to get into them finales, it's pretty much done and dusted then, isn't it? So I just feel that it's time that we got that first trophy into the cabinet. And look, I was going to fire this back at you quickly before I go to the next question. Are you confident of us beating Chelsea at the Emirates?
Yeah, I think we'll get past Chelsea.
Cool. Next question from Georgina Triggs. Asked Jim, have we lost the classic Arsenal free-flowing football due to Pep's influence on Arteta? It seems our players are reluctant to go for it.
No, I think the manager that looks like he's affected Arteta the most in the three he's been around is David Moyes. I think he plays football most like the football he played under Moyes at Everton. I think he plays the polar opposite to the football that Pep played and coached. Because I think you still watch Pep now, and he'll field a back four that I think he'll find embarrassing over his managerial career at Barca, Bayern, and Man City, respectively. And he'll still field one defensive midfielder, four attacking midfielders, and a striker. So I think he doesn't give a toss who's in his back four. He still tries to go and win games, even if he's playing kids and midfielders at fullback. I think if we have one of our main defensive four unit out, Arteta sets the entire team up to protect that one particular position. So I think as a manager, Arteta does the polar opposite. And I've never seen Arteta since Wenger play football like this at Arsenal in this style. So the only thing that I could resonate with where he's getting his playing style influences from was probably his time at Everton, which had a pretty defence and well organised and well muscled midfield in like Fellaini and fucking Darren Gibson, and Arteta was like the advancing eight, and he had a box crasher in someone like Tim Cahill, and he just try and fire headers in all the time. I honestly, I could if you wanted to hear it, and you probably need to be in a pub, I could debate that like he is trying to recreate that Everton team in the like early 2010s, late 2000s. And Smugs, I'll just fire that back off at you because you probably weren't expecting that, but you can see where I'm going with it.
Oh yeah, definitely. I can see where you're going with it as well. Do you know what I mean? Like when you said about the David Moyes kind of link before, he totally plays the totally opposite to what Pep Guardiola done at Manchester City, and it's amazing when you think about it, isn't it? That considering the success that he had with Pep Guardiola at Man City, that actually he's probably sat there and thought to himself, "I'm not going to be able to outplay him at footballing wise." So he's totally got a totally different philosophy to try and beat Man City, and at the moment it hasn't happened, does it? It would be in totally honest. Whether it happens this year or not, is only time will tell. But I bet David Moyes is sitting there quite proud of him.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I bet he's proper proud of him at present. But I sit there and think, Jim, at times, I've got to be honest, like after this season, just say we get over the line this season, yeah, right, and we do go and win the Premier League, what's kind of Arteta's objective then? Like, is it because it can't be to continue to play this kind of football? Surely not.
I do think that if he'll take a really deep breath and probably he'll probably add about 10 years to his life. And I do think the style of football will change a bit after that. And I do think that there'll be a slightly more free flowing aspect to it in the future because everything around the spotlight is absolutely on him and Arsenal to win major trophies at the moment. But what we can say is that whilst it's not the prettiest thing we've seen in the Premier League, we are dismantling teams in Europe. So, maybe he just tries to find a way of embodying the football that he plays on the continent into the domestic league. And if he does, then the Emirates will be a really exciting place to go. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Right. Next question from Laura. Do you think Subi and Rice work well together in that midfield? If not, who would be your midfield?
Yeah, we sort of covered this one off a bit this evening.
Yeah.
At times there is a slight feeling that there may be too similar a player. I think when we're playing against a better quality opposition, that the two of them work very well together. They're both technically gifted and pop the ball around and distribute the ball well, but I think they are being made to play a little bit samey at the moment, which again I think is a coaching thing. So I think there can be quite a lot of similarities in the way they play. I think positionally Zubimendi is very very strong. He's always in space. He's always available to receive the ball, and he's always thinking about the player in the last four that needs help doubling up in defensive situations. I do think Declan Rice has got another gear to his game, and I do think he can be so much more prolific in the final third. He just again needs to be allowed the license to go and do it. But yes, I think there's elements of the games where they look like the similar player. The obvious one for me would be, and Smugs has mentioned it multiple times, would be Rice would fall into the six and Eze would play in the left eight. I think he would be our most explosive player for creating in the final third. And look, let's just have it right. David Raya has won the Golden Gloves the last 2 years. Gabriel and Saliba are widely renowned as the best centre back pairing in Europe. I think Calafiori has come into his own this season, and we're incredibly fortunate to have two top draw right backs. So if you've got Rice, who's a top class player in a six, you've got that back four and David Raya, who I think is probably a top three keeper in the world now. You don't really need to laden it with a load more cover. As long as the attacking players do their jobs, for which Odegaard does very well. Gyökeres is a very good defensive number nine in the way in which he presses and pushes him around. Saka plied his trade as a left back when he came through the academy, so he knows how to do his defensive duties. And Trossard has improved that part of his game a lot. And Martinelli's very good at covering his fullback. So you don't, you could afford this team to drop a Zubimendi out of it and put an Eze in the eight, and I don't think we'd start bleeding goals. So that's just my take on it. I think Smugsy, you're of the same opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm 100% on that same opinion with you. Next question. Sorry, mate, I'm just trying to scroll down. From Jason. Why is there such a backlash when Arsenal lose a game compared to other teams? When Man City, Liverpool, and Chelsea lose, I don't seem to see any criticism to the teams. But when we lose, we seem to get criticism.
Yeah, look, probably just don't go looking for it. I'm sure it exists because your social media is probably data driven around everything related to Arsenal because you're an Arsenal supporter. So your feed probably just gets all Arsenal related content. I'm sure if you're a Man City fan, you'd find fans go erupting, and there'll be Liverpool fans that are popping off as well. But again, it comes down to the fact that Liverpool won the league last season. They won a Premier League a couple of years before that. They've had a 92 and a 97-point season. They've won the Champions League in recent years. Man City have won, just about everything in the last 10 years and have gone on quite monumental runs of multiple trophy seasons. So, they've probably earned the credit in the bank to have flat periods we have won one trophy in the last 6 years, spent as much money as just about everybody else, and keep getting into a scenario where it looks all but like we should win it, and we haven't. So that's probably why the media are gluing themselves to it, because they're just trying to find uh, they're trying to find an angle as to the fact that they assume we're going to bottle it at some point. So we have to answer those critics and silence them and actually go and win it. And I'm sure after we do that, the narrative around it will change. You were saying something to me, Smugsy, earlier that was winding you up. That was, that basically. Well, I'll let you explain it. Maybe you made a point about a certain Sunday supplement journalist who drove a massive point to start with, and now he's critiquing people because the polar opposite's happening.
Yeah, that's what worries me. I've seen it before, and I mentioned about the Unai Emery back in the day, in terms of his speech, weren't it? That it was actually the press that kind of ridiculed him with it, and then once he got dismissed at Arsenal, it was like pretty much it was banished back at the Arsenal fans in terms of how he got treated, how he was disrespectful, and all that. But it kind of concerned me with a certain Mr. Sam Dean. And I started reading stuff last month, and he'd been on Sunday supplement, obviously pretty much tarnishing Gyökeres's name. Do you know what I mean? And I just feel that at times it's put out there to obviously it's driven, isn't it? It's driven against obviously trying to obviously firstly drive clicks, but obviously drive engagement of the negative style. But then this is the same Sam Dean that I'm starting to read today, like coming to the defence of Arsenal Football Club and about the fans booing and all that. And I'm thinking, well, you're the kind of journalists that actually throw stuff out there to drive that bait. And then once the fans jump on it and then there's a reaction from the fans, you step back and then kind of mediate from a point of view that actually it's very fan driven. And for me, it's not fan driven all the time, and I feel that the press have pretty much always been on us. And look, a lot of that reason is because we haven't got over the line. And we're a clicking sensation, if we're being totally honest. Right?
Yeah.
So, we're a social media sensation. Let's be totally honest. We are a social media sensation. You put stuff about us. It's an easy click, left, right, and centre. But these journalists that come out there, like, they really, really, really like get under me if I'm being totally honest, because I kind of watch the behaviour and I kind of watch the style of what they're trying to achieve, and it really, really disappoints me because someone like Gyökeres, right? There's no detail in terms of what he's talking about. Do you know what I mean? It's just out there to like obviously have fans just jump straight on it and obviously go right against him. Like there's nothing to say. Look, if he was sat there in the Sunday supplement and then brought up loads of like data and information and why Gyökeres ain't performing, then fair enough. But he's not doing that, is he? Because if he did, he would realise that actually the problem is not Gyökeres. The problem is the creativity part of this team at the moment and the structure of this team and how the team's being coached and what the team's being coached to do. So yeah, I just get very frustrated by certain journalists, and I put one back at you, Steve, didn't I? Was it Balogun?
Yeah. And I read through it and I just thought there was a load of fluff around it, if I'm being honest. He was trying to somehow comprehend that Arsenal were, widely regarded amongst Europe as the top team in Europe, the team to beat. They're feared upon around Europe. I'm just not having any of it, if I'm being honest. Not at the moment. I can understand, an angle as to where he's coming from, but I just don't believe that Bayern Munich, Barcelona, and Real Madrid, respectively, like fear us that much yet, because we haven't gone on and lifted the trophies that make them turn their head. I think if we go and win them, then we're right there amongst them. But in order to be able to stand next to those guys, you've got to get the gold patches on your sleeve, and that's it.
It's incredible, though, isn't it? Like 1 minute we're seen as the best team in the world, but the next minute we're seen as we would be the worst champions ever.
Yeah, exactly.
So in the space of 3-4 days, do you know what I mean? You got Lee Henry saying one thing, and you got Paul Scholes saying totally the opposite.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Right, let's finish these questions up. So the next question is from Darius. Who was you most impressed with in the game, even though it ended in defeat?
First half, Saka. I thought Saka had a really strong half. I think he's needed a good performance in the big game, and I thought he had a good first half. Um, and I'm a fan of his, but I thought Gyökeres's cameo in the second half was really good. I'd be really interested to see what you thought from it in the ground, but I thought he come on and did his jobs really well. Everyone was sort of saying, how many touches of the ball will he get? Will it be one? Will it be two? Will it be maybe three? And he got on the ball quite a lot and popped the ball around the corner, and he gave Martinez a very, very, very different game to the one that Jesus gave him. Um, but it's really hard to pick a standout performer in in a game that was incredibly flat on our side. I thought Marino did well when he come on again. He was busy, got himself right in the mix, nicked a goal. Um, but largely it was a very disappointing performance. So yeah, it's hard to pick that one.
Next question. Do you think the substitutions show panic from the manager?
Yes, I do.
We've got about three more I can see. Question from Jonesy. Is it time we start talking about Odegaard? We've pretty much answered this. Odegaard, captain, being subbed after 55 minutes, 90% of the time backward passing to safety, afraid to lose the ball for physically and not there, physically not there, and it's killing him as a player.
Yeah, I think Jonesy covers off all the points, and we've sort of argued this one to death. I don't also want to. I wouldn't even write off Odegaard necessarily as a player for Arsenal. I just think
Yeah.
he could do with having the captaincy lifted off him and just like allow him to just fall back into the squad, and then maybe come off the bench when the game's a little bit more open and find his form a little bit more and be able to try and start impacting games again and play himself back in. I do think that, and this isn't an excuse for him, but I do think he is, as much as we're in four tournaments, his head is not completely in it. He is Norway captain, and they are going to go to a World Cup in the summer. He is going to go there as captain, and it's something they've not done for 3 decades or so, since the 90s. And I do really think that he is tentative about making sure that he is fit to go to that tournament and walk them out in America, because that's a big, big deal for his country. And if that is the case, then I would take the captaincy off him, because I think someone like Declan Rice, who's probably got the World Cup in the back of his mind and definitely wants to go to an England team who would be amongst the favourites to win it, I do think he wants to win everything domestically and then go to the World Cup, not the other way round. And part of me is concerned that Odegaard is Norway first and then Arsenal,
Yeah.
because I think you can show in his play he just, in the 50-50s, he doesn't want the contact. He's turned his back on a couple of opportunities where he could have stopped goals. I think the Aston Villa one with Buendia is the most noticeable, but he's been blighted with injuries recently, and he's just had a new family and stuff like that. And you've mentioned it a few times, Smugsy, and I do think he is. I don't know. I maybe mentally it's a mental thing, but I do think mentally maybe he's just not quite there yet either to like properly put his body on the line as well.
Yeah, I'm very interested with Odegaard. I think he looks a bit ill at times, to be honest. Doesn't
Yeah.
it? Doesn't it? Just doesn't look. He just doesn't look the same person. I
He
know he's
looks a bit
obviously.
gaunt, doesn't he? I think he looks a bit gaunt in the face. He's almost like he looks like he could do with putting a little bit of weight on,
Yeah,
um, and just being a bit more physical. But
yeah, definitely. But next question, I'm going to kind of filter it down a little bit. But basically, do you think we need any additions, especially after Sunday and our attack being so off form in a minute?
yeah, I don't really think we need to go into the market. I think this is the most complete Arsenal squad I can ever remember. Certainly in the Emirates era, outside of Highbury. But in the Emirates era, which is what, 20 years now, I cannot think of an Arsenal squad with this amount of talent in it. I really just think it's the style of football. and just allowing players to play. But there's more than enough talent there. We in eras where we've had like Giroud as the number 9, or we've relied upon Podolski for periods of time, or Lucas Perez, or Danny Welbeck when he was just like in and out of the team with injuries and stuff. Probably a better player now at Brighton than he was at United or Arsenal, funny enough. But I think God, those teams would have loved to have had Gyökeres, Jesus, or Havertz, not all three of them in the team at the same time, or in the squad. We've got options and two good players in every single position. So, if you're trying to be like uber pernickety, would you want like a top class? No, I wouldn't buy a left back. The only thing really, and I think we've mentioned this thing to death, Smugsy, is like the only thing really would be like, could you get an equivalent level player on Saka's level for the left wing? But that I still feel like you're kind of clutching at straws a bit. But
Yeah.
I think they will assess that left wing and that wide attacker in the summer. But I don't. I'm not sure that player exists in a January market. And I think with 4 days to go, we've shown our hand. No one in, no one out, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely, totally agree there. Tony saying, I think Mikel made the wrong decision from the start in playing Martin Odegaard and Gabriel Jesus, which was wrong in my eyes. I think he should have got Gyökeres up front, and he is more of a physical presence and would have unsettled United defenders. This was proven when he come on. And Martin Odegaard's not been at his best, so why put him on? He could have played him on Wednesday, got 60 good minutes, and then started at Leeds. What do you think, Jim? Was he right or wrong? What's your opinion?
I agree with you, Tony. I think Gyökeres should have started. He's been our starting number 9 in the Premier League, and even when he's not had his best games, we've still gone on and won them. So he's obviously contributing something within those matches, which is helping us get over the line. And Eze did start in the game against Inter Milan, and the first 20 minutes, I was just shocked how much Eze and Marina got at him. So I would have tried to have taken a lot of that Inter Milan performance into Sunday. So I'm with you. I probably would have started Eze and Gyökeres over Jesus and Odegaard on Sunday. So I think you're right.
Just found 2 more questions. Let's do them quickly. If Mikel Arteta isn't the manager at the start of next season, who is? I think we have this quite a few times, to be fair, haven't we?
Yeah, I like Luis Enrique from PSG, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you. Winner. That's what I'm going to say. Andrew Mockler, after Sunday's debacle, what, if any, change would you make for the weekend?
And we kind of covered this one off. I think I'd like to see Rice come into the 6. I'd like to see Eze in. I'd actually like to see Eze and Odegaard start in the 2 midfield positions. I'd be quite happy for Eze to start that game. Yeah. Odegaard defensively, I haven't really got too many issues with. He occupies the defensive spaces quite well, and he's a really good presser up the front. He'll get alongside Gyökeres, and he won't let him play out the back. And I think Rice could suppress two midfielders, and Gabriel likes stepping up. So, that will, and I don't have any issues with leaving Calvert-Lewin with Saliba on a 1-on-1. So, no dramas there. So I'd kind of like to go, for me, I'd like to go Raya, White, Saliba, Gabriel. If Calafiori's fit, he'll play. If he's not, I'd probably play Timber at left back. Rice, Eze, Odegaard, Martinelli, Gyökeres, Saka.
Good team, mate. I think couldn't argue that too much whatsoever. I do think that with Timber, I do think he needs a bit of a rest. I've been told.
Yeah.
Now, even if you just take him out for like a whole week, you know what I mean? I picked up on it, didn't I? I think I said to you after the Liverpool game that, and I always go back to Gakpo. He stopped jumping with Gakpo, which for me was inexcusable. But it's just something not right with him as well at the moment. But I do wonder whether it's playing on his mind that he keeps getting put out of position. Is he comfortable? I don't think he's totally comfortable on the left-hand side. One thing I was going to mention to you, Jim, that I found quite interesting, right? And this kind of summed it all up on Sunday, but you've kind of mentioned it as well in terms of what subs you would have wanted, was we moved both our right-hand side over to the left.
Mm.
And we totally bypassed Lewis Skelly and Martinelli that were sitting on the bench. Like, I think it's them kind of decisions, mate, that you sit there and you just think, do you know what I mean? How does that look? How does the players feel about that? Do you know what I mean? How would Martinelli feel about that? How do Lewis Skelly feel about that? Do you know what I mean? Just are these little decisions that are being made, like then playing on the players' minds a little bit as well? Because
I don't know. Honestly,
let me put it the other way now, right? How many other teams do you see put their whole right-hand side over to the left-hand side 78 minutes into games?
Yeah, I mean, like, you don't really. I mean, but Semenyo started on the left to start with for City. He's played the last 2 games on the right, and they interlock him a bit,
good enough,
you know. Yeah. But Saka's good enough to play anywhere on the pitch, you know. So, and they wanted to get Ben White in the game, so they decided to keep Timber on the pitch to rotate one of the other midfielders out. I think if Zubimendi was having half a game, he would have stayed on, and they'd have probably looked at Lewis Skelly at left back instead. But they had to pull Zubimendi off the pitch. He's having a nightmare, to be honest. Worst game in an Arsenal shirt. So, look, you know. It is a funny one, but I think fans are overthinking and are way more emotional than players. If it wasn't the right game to bring Martinelli in, I honestly don't think he's overly. I don't think he's going to go away and sulk about it. You know, you got another game in 3 days. They have a day off. The next day they train today, and then he probably finds out today he starts tomorrow. So you know, and that's a good thing for us as well. Kairait at home probably come at a good time. Like, you know, we should go and try and get 4 or 5 on them and like proper bash them up.
Well, is that another problem? We're thinking about the next game ahead, even before the last game's finished.
No, I'm just saying there's an alternative to a player who doesn't get on the pitch. Like, you know, he's got, in 3 days' time, he's got another opportunity. I don't think Arteta's thinking about it too much. I think he's trying to live in the moment. But yeah, honestly, I don't think these players will. I think I think it would have affected Eza because he sat out about 8 games after scoring a hat-trick, and I think he'll understand 1, sometimes 2, but like 3, 4, 5, 6, I think he'd be sitting there thinking, bloody hell, I didn't sign up for that. But
there's your last question on the screen. Do you think there needs to be a conversation about Saka moving on in the summer?
No. Well, I think he's just signed a new 5-year contract, Rosie. So I can't imagine he goes anywhere whatsoever. I think the interesting
few years older.
I think the interesting dynamic with Saka is going to be if Odegaard did move on, and I think this could be a summer where he might. If Odegaard did move on, I think he would expect to be the captain, Saka, be named as the captain. And if I'm being honest with you, I actually think Arteta may go down that route, and I think that'll be a mistake, but I think he could do that.
I'm not really with that personally.
I know you're not with it, nor am I, and I think it is abundantly clear who Arsenal's captain should be. But really, you know, historicals would tell you that the vice captain gets promoted, and I think that would be another move that Arsenal fans sit there scratching their head on, because there's a perfect opportunity for him to mix it up. But I don't know. I don't know that he would. If you were vice captain and your skipper leaves, surely you'd sit there in the gaffer's office. I'm the highest paid player at the club. I'm one of the longest serving players. I've done this. I've done that. I've got 100 goals. I've got 100 goals and assists for the team. Like, I'm ready. It's my turn to step up now. You're going to turn around and be like, sorry, mate, Declan's getting it.
That's what he's
Which is what he should say.
What he's paid for. He's paid a good amount of money, mate. He needs to make the right decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for me, it's not the right decision that he should be vice captain now, personally. Do you know what I mean? It's not the right decision that Odegaard should be captain personally, but obviously is a decision that's obviously not been made, and we're sitting at the moment with obviously Odegaard captain and Saka vice captain. But imagine, flip it on the other foot, yeah, right, Jim. I know this will be the last question tonight, yeah, right. What happens if we go and win a triple? And Odegaard's captain and Saka's vice captain. Like, that'd be even more of a tougher decision to make, wouldn't it? Like, say, do you know what? I don't think either of you like the long-term choice.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have. Is the only way I could assess that.
Yeah. We'd be a bit stumped on that conversation, I reckon, by that point. But look, we got a long way to go before even that. It becomes even just a dream for us. Do you know what I mean? We are still back in January, so loads of games to go, and obviously we'll hopefully turn a corner pretty soon.
Absolutely, mate.
Right, obviously we're going to wrap up the show tonight. It's been a long old one. 2 hours 20 minutes of talking all things Arsenal. We're literally up to, well, it says 1,625, but that will be a lot more because of YouTube views. So it'd be interesting to see what actually come through tonight. But obviously, thank you to absolutely every single person that's come on the show tonight. If you contributed in the chat, thank you very much as well. Your engagement always absolutely appreciated, and me and Jim respect it loads. But Jim, obviously, got anything interesting this weekend apart from obviously hoping Arsenal get 3 points?
Well, we'll just say firstly the winner of the question.
Oh yeah, sorry.
There's an N5 clock on display. I actually really like Prudy's question, so Prudy's a winner. That was my favourite. So I think she was up first and held her course through what felt like about 50 questions there. So yeah, I've got a golf tournament this weekend, so I've got a pretty big one. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but luckily it's in the morning here, so I'll be done well before. The 3 o'clockers kick off at 7 o'clock. My little boy is buzzing for it because the 3 o'clock kickoff's the only ones that normally happen before his bedtime. So we'll try and play well in the golf comp, and then we'll be on the sofa in our Arsenal shirts, hopefully seeing a very different performance.
Absolutely, and obviously, I'll share your sentiment, mate. I've got a quiet one this weekend. Got the boys Saturday, so yeah, really looking forward to watching the game and having 2 little kids running around me.
Exactly.
I'm going to try and ilk out the Billy, my 1-year-old. Probably go to sleep at 2 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. So we'll see how that one occurs.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
go on, mate.
Well, no, I was just going to say, other than that, it was, 2 hours, 20 minutes is a good old marathon. I'm going to go and get my head down now. It's midnight here, but no, mate, great show. And thank you again for everyone who's contributed, like an amazing turn up. And hopefully some of the musings and the negativity around the display isn't, we're still top of the league. And the good thing is, it's only a few days' time, and we can go and change our fortunes and put a good result in on Leeds. So.
No, absolutely, and I second that. Just quickly before we go, next week, sadly, I am away next Tuesday, so there won't be an M5 show. Me and Jim, though, are going to try and work on doing a pre-recording show that will go out to you guys. So it won't be a live show next week, but we will try and get something out because obviously we understand quite what a big game next Saturday is. But then obviously we've got the League Cup on Tuesday. So keep your eye on the socials, and hopefully we'll be able to give you some guidance when that will come out. But again, that's another N5 show done, complete and wrapped up. Thank you very much. And we move on to tomorrow. Hopefully a comprehensive win. And then we'll turn the corner totally on Saturday. Good night, all.
Up the Gunners.